Hello and welcome to CANNAMAntv. In this interview, I speak with cannabis activist, writer and creator of the Simpa Life podcast, Simpa Carter. In this interview, we discuss the origins of the Simpa Life podcast, drug consumption, mental health and overcoming adversity, UK cannabis and cannabis media, the creative spirit, personal development and self-sustainability, and what to expect from the Simpa Life podcast in the future. Make sure and like and subscribe, and join me on Patreon, where you can help to build a stronger cannabis media platform, or support me on PayPal with a one-time donation at paypal.me/CANNAMAnTV77. Now then, let's talk cannabis. Dynamite Man, cheers for coming back on the channel. This is going to be a fucking sweet interview.
Sure, looking forward to it, man.
I thought the best thing to do, man, was to just have it, because let's say you've got the amount of people you've interviewed. I know you've interviewed Chad Westport recently. The amount of interviews you've done, the amount of people you've came across, it's a story, and I think it's interesting with everybody that's engaged in anything productive or novel on a daily basis. You're engaged in more than just the craft. You're engaged in a greater story that's going on in your life, and I thought that'd be great to document your story of how you got to where you're going, what's happening in the future, and all that kind of stuff. So just the first thing, and bearing in mind, you can't like, man, I'm a fucking nightmare of waffle, so do your best, just spill all this shit out, man. This is fucking like, didn't wait for me to talk, nobody want to hear my shit. So I just pre-Simpa Life podcast, describe your story and how it got to the Simpa Life podcast, and just to that point. So who were you in the past, and essentially to get to the Simpa Life podcast, inevitably that's you trying to be somebody in the future. So we'll start off with, who were you in the past and how did you get to creating the Simpa Life podcast?
That's a hell of a question. I mean, how far back do we go? I mean, once upon a time I was in a race with tens of millions of other little spermlets to race towards an egg, and I guess I just got lucky, you know what I mean? Everyone else, they failed the race, I got through, and yeah, consequently, birth.
Came out with a joint. This is the guy.
Yeah, give straight. I was like, it's my spot, right time. It's still not you. We'll work on it. We'll figure this out. Yes, I suppose I come from quite humble beginnings from Yorkshire by birth. A lot of people don't know that about me, because obviously I rep Durham so hard. Being the city that I was raised in, also the county that I was raised in, and I suppose the city that I spent my adulthood in. But yeah, was sort of brought into the world in Yorkshire. I had quite a tumultuous childhood. Suffered parental suicide when I was like 18 months, which was quite destructive, tore the family down, sort of classic lines. One family went one way, one went the other, and kind of really lessened the opportunities of my youth, not having as many familial people around, not having that same level of support. That dramatically impacted my other parent, my mother's ability to raise her kids in what was a very difficult time, herself losing a partner, being widowed, dealing with, guilt from one side of the family and being supported by the other. Quite a difficult economic period. Thatcher starting to, tear apart the North. And yeah, we ended up sort of in Durham, and as a kid, I clearly had behavioral problems as a consequence of, I'm not going to say my mother's choice, but basically her next partner was an incredibly vicious individual, was a very abusive man, very intelligent, very crafty, very cunning, very sly, capable of manipulating systems and individuals. And consequently to that, my education suffered. At various points, I was in and out of sort of foster care. I was in and out of social services. Didn't have a mainstream education from year 3 onward. I went back into mainstream education for year 7, and subsequently that came to an end because of, my own actions ultimately. But as I'm slowly starting to unravel, even now, nearly 30 years later almost at this point, there was underlying neurological sort of issues. I was diagnosed as a kid as ADHD, and then basically they never mentioned it again until I was an adult, and kind of went, this might be part of the reason that you're struggling with life. And yeah, going through autism assessment at the minute, which is not fun. It's long-winded, and it's very lacking in sort of personal, I don't want to say sympathy, but insight, like an ability to empathize with the individual. So it feels quite callous and cold of a process to be going through. And speaking of things that I suppose callous and cold, that was my education, was sent away to what they call SEND schools now, special educational needs, prior to the changing of the child protection laws. And so things were pretty bad. You know, kids at 6, 7 year old would get piled on by 4 or 5 adults. You'd have like a hand to your mouth so you couldn't spit or bite. They put your hands behind your back, across your legs. They put knees into you. They weren't allowed to choke, but in certain instances they choked. I mean, one of the reasons my teeth are so messed up is my head teacher actually took my teeth out at the bottom. And so, yeah, it was quite brutal. It was a brutal home life. It was a brutal school life and everything in between. I had a lot of problems with the police. I had a lot of problems with authority. I had a period of great silence. I just stopped talking. I couldn't speak. I had nothing to say. So I spent a good 6 months where I just didn't interact with the world because I couldn't qualify and quantify my experience into a means that I could articulate to others the experience I was having. And it was just left so alien. And in some ways, I've never really got back to terra firma. I've always had this abstract, this kind of alien, isolated experience of life in that I can't understand humanity. I love it. I worship and adore the beauty within it and our capability for compassion and, you know, great achievement. But the older I get and the worse society falls, I feel like I'm almost going back to my youth, and I'm just wanting to lash out at the world because I can't again articulate it. For all now, I have a voice and I speak on a podcast and I do all the various other things that I do. For a long period of time, I just rebelled against the world. I spent a good decade consuming every drug I could find, drinking every drop of alcohol I could consume. If I was conscious, I was fucked up. It was just a way to deal with the trauma of my youth. It wasn't even to deal with it. It was to suppress it. It was to stop myself having to deal with this reality. And then I kind of came to, through my list of drugs, I suppose, LSD and acid is something that it doesn't let you abuse it in the way you want to abuse it. There's such insight to it. For all it's a synthetic compound, obviously the way it's made today, it derives from obviously ergot and the entire history of it with that culturally and historically. But it is this mind-opening thing. It just kicked the shit out of me. I had this experience that just snapped me out of myself, and I was able to kind of look down this timeline of myself and look forward at this potential future. I stood at this crossroads and had to make this decision. Do I keep destroying myself? Do I keep, denying myself the option to live a meaningful life, a purposeful life, to find value, to find beauty, to find love, to give love, to share the experience of what it is to be human, to, articulate what it is to have been me, to be me, to continue to be me. And yeah, through that, I kind of started to get rid of certain drugs, and I went, okay, I don't need these ones still kind of help, and just went through a titration process, a filtration process of trying to understand, well, what works. And so I recognized that LSD, psilocybin, DMT, and cannabis were the things that really did something for me. MDMA as well, in my youth helped me a lot to be able to just festivals, at events, at free parties, you end up, talking, what do they call it in 24-hour party people? Was it human traffic? Talking cod shit. And you're just there at 4 a.m. just talking bollocks. And that's where I would have my therapy sessions. And you'd share that with others. You would be fucked up and you would each describe your intimate pain and whatever. And you would, in a way, lessen that. And it's kind of, for a shit analogy, it's like Harry Potter and Horcruxes. You leave a piece of your trauma with others and you trauma bond and you feel this connection to humanity. You feel this compassion, this again, I hate the word sympathy because it's so loaded, but I mean this true understanding of their experience. And kind of through all of this, I came to this grand understanding that I repeat on my podcast quite often, is that if I was born you, raised as you, and lived as you, I would be you. Therefore, I'm not different. I'm just me. You are you, I am me, and everyone is everyone else individually, And yeah, as I started to come out of the haze of all of these things and start to rebuild my life, I had a period where I wasn't so traumatized anymore. I was just lost. I didn't have purpose or focus. I recognized the value of what I had done, and the journey that I'd gone through, the struggle, the transformation that I'd gone through, but I didn't have an outlet to describe it, to, you know, show others that, wait a minute, there's another world to drugs, to drug culture, to the free party scene, to the squat scene, to dealing, to vending, to all of these different levels of these demonized and vilified and criminalized subcultures. And then I went to Product Earth, and I just saw that straight line again. I just glimpsed it, and I was just like, I can see it. I can't see exactly every station along the way, but I can see at the end of it, there is a world in which I would fight and die for. Therefore, I have to make that journey. And so that kind of led me to starting Durham City Cannabis Club, led me to getting much more active in the community, to doing like documentary with the BBC about like taking LSD, and interacting with more journalists, and just being more open and more vocal, meeting more people and networking. And through that, I kind of built this base of contacts that I've been utilizing as part of the podcast for guests to have these conversations, to try and sincerely, meaningfully connect with other people one-on-one and go, this is my experience. What is yours? What do you think? What do you believe? What do you love? What do you hate? What do you care for? What do you not? You know, and that to me it's my connection to humanity. Even if my podcast never goes to astronomical levels of listeners and audience base, that's not what I'm doing it for. It's a weekly therapy session almost for me. It's a way to connect with other people that have tasted that passion, have been infected by something in this space that goes, I will cast off all of the luxury, I will cast off all of the potential egoic, selfish desire, and I will fight this fight, because I believe that even if I don't get to lay under the shade of that tree, that the generations that come after me will have that opportunity. In the same way the generations before me, their work built the foundations I get to stand on, and mine will do the same for others. And I think that's kind of how I've got to sort of where I am now. I hope that wasn't too long-winded.
No, not at all, man. That's brilliant. The thing is, there's a couple of points I was going to say. What is first off, the conversation basis for therapy? There's an interesting quote where they say that conversation is there to organize your thoughts. You know, and I think that's kind of pertinent. But and also the documentary, for people that want to see that, what's the name of that? How would you find that?
It was a 10-15 minute short on the Victoria Derbyshire show. I think they've still got it on YouTube. The people that microdose LSD.
Right.
It's really annoying though, because the first like 5 seconds that I'm on, they've put a miscut, and they've put me saying microgram instead of milligram.
Right.
Which has frustrated me ever since they did it, because they were here for about three and a half hours. And bless her, wait, it's obviously public record anyway. Catherine Nye, the reporter, and her camera guy were here, and they were basically like, wait, BBC policy is we can't encourage criminal behavior. And they were kind of kept skirting around this thing, and I'm like, do you guys want me to take acid? And they're like, we can't condone that, but if you chose to do that. And it was just this real sort of coy thing. So I think it was about what, third of a tab, something like that. I don't know whether it was one of the hundreds or the 200s, but I felt comfortable. I had a fun few hours with them. And yeah, they cut it down to this like 10-15 minutes, and it's basically me at the kettle, and I mispronounce. I go milligram and then correct myself to microgram, and they used the milligram because obviously they didn't check with anyone that knew which one was correct.
Yeah. Educated enough to actually know what the real one was.
Yeah, so that's the only negative I've ever got from it, is people like, no, he doesn't know. It's like, no, I knew. I just misspoke over 3 fucking hours, and the amount I talk anyway. Then give me drugs in the comfortability of my house with a quite well-known reporter. Then yeah, it's gonna go. And that led to the next one. 2 days later, they took me down to London, and I went on Victoria Derbyshire show live and took us in the studio. And that was an interesting experience. So I spent about 45 minutes with Emily Thornberry, one of the Labour MPs. She was, I think, shadow defence minister at the time. So we ended up quiffing, joking about something on the telly, because she sat in a green room with a big old screen, and it's playing like a loop of that stuff. And so we were commenting on the news stuff. Kind of, so who are you? Just as my VT came on, she was like, oh. And so we ended up having this conversation about like how microdosing helps with depression and menopause and all kinds of fucking things. And it was just this, she was very standoffish until she saw the thing, and then was like, oh right. And then when I went on stage, it was an awkward experience, because you go on, You can't fucking talk, and there's like a rig points you, and then you got another person and they point you, and then you've got to stand in a thing and the camera, and you've got to get on your mark. And they don't talk to you; they just fucking point you like a dog. They got us on, and Victoria was doing her bit. I saw her notes, and literally just kind of looked at it, glanced at it, and it was just enough that I was kind of like, all right, and sort of built my responses. And then we went through it, held my ground, I think, very well. And then she asked the question of, well, what do you think about that this is encouraging sort of drug dealing and human trafficking and gang violence and all of this stuff? And I went, they're the consequences of prohibition, not of drugs. And she kind of went back in a roundabout way, and I just reiterated my point, and they went, oh, okay, we'll leave it, and then moved on to the next fucking segment. And then I'm basically yanked off the stage, like the little sound stage, and then basically just kick you out the building. I'm like, thank you, fucking rub your makeup off and throw you out the fucking thing. It's the weirdest thing. It's just the weirdest thing. I walk outside, like I deliberately kept the little BBC badge. I was like, nah, it's going in my memories box. And just walked outside and smoked a joint, walked straight into Oxford Street, and there's all those people. And it's like the weirdest juxtaposition. Because they have like these little hotels around the corner from the studios, they're quite like cheap by London style. But literally so they can just keep people there. So you get in, you get on the studio, and you're just in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absorbed by it.
Quite the experience, man. That's dynamite. That's really cool. I look forward to watching that. I think one of the things that's most notable as well, you describe in your story, man, is that it's like, you know, I don't know if it's as a consequence of what I've been doing for the past wee while or whatever, but it's inevitably, I said to my son the other day, is that life is like a movie. That's what this is like. You're the protagonist in the movie of your life, and as a consequence of that, there is specific instances that happen that seem to be universal to everybody, and I find it interesting, particularly those that have kind of found themselves in a position of transformation, that they're trying to become somebody new, for the betterment of themselves, their local community, and everybody that's connected to them. And inevitably, one of those the necessary precursors to that transformation is extreme trauma and tragedy. It seems to be that it's necessary. It's like a system reset circumstance, and sometimes the system fails and doesn't come back online, and those are the individuals that have succumbed to the weight and the pressure of the tragedy, whereas others, their system is reset, and then they're in a position of strength and and progression, and it seems to be that it's necessary for that to be the case. And so I mean, at this stage, I mean, when Product Earth happened, when you had the realization, when you started filtering out substances and stuff, well, I mean, what is this, 2016, 17, something like that?
16, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, so that would then mean this stage is then the filter period. This is you've been in the filter period. This is the transformation. This is like it's in. I watched this thing last night and I forget what it is, but they put out a formula where it was involving in rebirth, and it's essentially the alchemical process. You know, it's the basis of getting rid of inferior metals, inferior impurities, and these kind of things in order to solidify yourself to then become the philosopher's stone, in order to become the gold. So at this stage, how would you describe what it is that's active at this moment in time? So you're kind of you're engaged with repetition of the craft. You've standardized your skill set when it comes to all of your work when it relating to writing and production of the podcast. What's the future? What is it? What do you see the penultimate being? Because inevitably, nobody wants to go, oh, I've reached that destination now. Even when you're in your 60s, your 70s, it's never recommended to be like, right now, I've peaked. You're always in this state of progression, because with it going too metaphysical, entropy exists. There's this forever present circumstance for a tendency towards disorder. That's just the truth. And like, if you don't tidy, like, fucking hell, you don't tidy your house, and you're like, okay, I'll just stay in Neutralville. And then you go back a year later, your house is a fucking mess. There's dust everywhere, the spider webs, all that kind of stuff. So chaos is always around the corner. So what do you see the next stage of your journey being?
I think to answer this in kind of like almost like to use Joseph Campbell and kind of the hero's journey as a way of it, or even to use like shitty B movies, 90s movie critic kind of version. I kind of feel in a way that I'm at the all is lost moment. The moment in the third act of this part of my journey, as it were, where the protagonist is kind of overcome the hurdles, they've reconciled with the community and members and whatever else, and they're facing the big bad. And I kind of feel like I'm facing a big bad that's ever growing with a group of people that's ever dwindling.
Right.
And so in my head, it's kind of like, wait, this is where the underdog kind of steps in, you know what I mean? But life isn't necessarily an 80s movie. It may be a movie. I agree that the protagonist element, in terms of that, yeah, everyone sees themselves as the protagonist of their own narrative, that they are the hero, so they can justify any of their actions because that's what the character is doing in their narrative. You know what I mean? Whether we accept that we live that way consciously or subconsciously, I think there is a huge element to that. So I'll go back to kind of why I feel like that in a minute in terms of sort of the rest of the answer. I feel like I'm just searching for the right words, the right phrasing, the right way to articulate my frustrations and my suspicions with what is currently happening, and to highlight the potential consequence of our apathy and our inaction. And I don't feel like I'm championing what I was once championing. I think I've continued to evolve within this space. So I think in a way I'm almost going back into another filter process of then going, okay, I've got all these skills, I've got all this network, I've spent all this time doing all of this work. And I think that's why I've gone so quiet recently, other than just trying to knock out an episode a week and the odd blog with the Last Week in Weed series, because I've unintentionally empowered a lot of people, and I've unintentionally disempowered a lot of other people. I'm recognizing the weight of my actions, and for all that I don't feel it, the influence that I have. And I'm trying to take that pause and reflect on what it is that I put forward next. If people are going to follow something, if people are going to champion something or back something, I need to figure out what it is. And I think earlier you said something, I can't remember what the quote was, but it's something similar. I say I probably picked it up from a movie somewhere, but it's how do I know what I think until I've heard what I have to say? And that's always been my mantra with this, is I'll just talk it out. If I get something wrong, I'll go, whoa, that was bad, I'm sorry about that, guys, and figure it out. You know, we'll apologize, analyze it, and understand it. And that's always been kind of my process. That's the way I work best. But I've recognized, like I said, the consequence of this means that I've given others some great ideas. I've given others insight and information that they shouldn't necessarily have access to. And the things that they've done with it have taken me further away from that vision, that line that I can see. And that isn't to say that I know what the utopia looks like. Yeah, I'm at a point of frustration. As I said, I think this is why I'm going back to kind of a meditation and a filtration, to really sit and think about the culmination of the work that I've done and where I want the next 5, 10, 15, 50 years of my life to go. Because like I said earlier, of the infection, I cannot leave this alone. I cannot. It is such a level of injustice, and it is such a monstrous thing to me that my life has been saved entirely, not by the NHS, for all it is a service that I love, not by doctors, healthcare professionals, not by authoritative systems, not by educators, not by religious leaders, not by these individuals that we hold in high regard and esteem. It's by dirty druggies, it's dropouts, it's hippies, you know, it's musicians, it's artists. And that's what frustrates me greatly of this. That is what I feel is the beauty that I want to champion in the world. That is what I want to represent. And I feel that this corporate cannabis, this legalization, capital L legalization that is coming through, is antithetical to the freedom, the liberty, the justice, the equality, the equity, and the fairness that I want to fight for, that I will die for if necessary. And I don't mean that sounds so grandiose, but I've been given a life that I didn't think I would ever have because of drugs and drug culture, and because of the people that operate within this space. So why would I not champion them? How can I not champion them?
Typically fucking Simpa, can I hate go back, I'll edit this part out, but it says I've only got remaining meeting time 10 minutes, so you might have that as well.
Can you switch me to host? Because I've got a full account.
I've got a full account as well. I don't know why this came up. Wait a minute. How do you switch to host? I could just cancel off it and then I'll send you over again if you like. Once it gets to like a minute left. This is annoying because I do pay this like 15 quid a month to fucking make sure this is working.
I think if you click on the people, the participants,
right,
then on me, on the double dots, have you got a thing make host?
No, it's chat, stop video. Oh, make host, there we go. Do you want to change host to Simpa? I do indeed. Simpa's now the host. Excellent. So what does that mean? That mean, oh, it's still got 10 minutes.
So
Okay.
typical.
I know, it's all good. I'll just take a fucking. Hopefully that doesn't mean that it's reclaim host. There we go. Fuck it, doesn't matter. Yeah, just to go back on what you were saying there, man. It's like one of the things I think, because let's say when I think about the landscape of cannabis in the UK, I'm the same. You know, I have this relatively pessimistic fucking view, which is increasing by the day. It seems of the structure that's getting put in place for us to access a plant which we should be readily accessing for free. And it's most noticeable when I wrote the book, the A Case for Cannabis, and I've seen this coincidental network that was emerging in the context of clinics at the same time as laws weren't fully passed yet, and all these different things, and these are now directly profiting at the same time that they're claiming it's obviously a step forward, because in a very small perspective it is, but at the same time it's like to have these things in place means there was forethought for those that are going to be directly benefiting from it, and then it narrows out this small, it filters down to this small group of people that can access cannabis based on, do you have the money? And if you don't, then sorry mate. At the same time as that going on, you've also got a media enterprise which has obviously been forever present, completely disregarding the fact that it's possible. But when they do highlight it, they highlight it in such a way that it's like, this is the only viable option. You know, if you're going to consume cannabis, it's through this structure that's now, we're kind of against it, but it's okay, and this kind of shit. And you're like, wait a fucking minute. This is like, you know, that's what the animation was, UK Medical Cannabis, where you've got Donnie gets fucking chased by the police because he's like growing it next door to a clinic. You know, it's just that kind of thing. But on top of that, though, when you're talking about the fact that it seems like you went full circle and you're in a position of relative, again, increased pessimism as a consequence of this, like what seems like, you know, it's too much to handle, that kind of stuff, because of the situation that you're fighting. I find that extremely exciting, quite honestly, because what that showed, because that's what kept popping to mind, where I was like, the situation you were in initially, because that's the whole basis of what I'm getting to. And it's the same thing when it comes to why my fascination with alchemy and just the general lifespan of the human being itself. Because regardless if we believe it or not, it seems to me, and obviously personal opinion, that the human lifespan is the most explicit, complex representation of a geometric fractal possible. And this is displayed through social action. It's displayed through lifestyle choices. And we separate those things because we feel autonomous to those choices. And that's when, in my mind, I'm trying to narrow it down to, I wonder what the geometric fractal or the repetition is over the course of a time span. Is it over the course of 3 years? Is it over the course of 6? Is it over the course of 5? And because what I've done in my mind is I'm trying to look back to my own life, and at times of difficulty or success, and at what time period was this going on, and in order to try and create some form of cyclic pattern that I can hack into in the future in order to benefit myself and be sustainable for the community and all these different things. A wee bit sly fucking marketing of the CANNAMAN Cup, everybody.
Love it.
So yeah, just fucking before I got cut off there, man. That's how I see life. It's like the most complex geometric fractal, because that's how I see it. If you see it in flowers, you see it in ocean waves, you see it in weather and patterns, you see it on the most macro cosmic element when it comes to how it seems to be the pictures given from universe, from like NASA or scientists, and it seems to be this same geometric repetition displayed in some form. So inevitably, if it's there, it must be represented in our life some way. And it does seem to be this, like, it's very noticeable to myself. That's, I mean, people probably screaming, I think I'm a fucking idiot. I think that as well. But your daily life is a repetition. Your daily life is your geometric fractal. If you had a bird's eye view of your month, there would be a relatively similar pattern over the course of each day, give or take. You know, and if that's the case, then when it comes to lifestyle choices, and I don't mean consumption or diet or any kind of thing, I mean what it is that you're here to leave a mark on. You know, I did a video recently about the Productive Path book, which I'll send you a copy down, by the way, man. I'd love to see what you think of that.
Appreciate
it. And that's one of the things I said in it, was that it's kind of, you're in a position where you're choosing what it is that you're doing for the future. When if you've been fortunate enough to put into a circumstance to even think about what it is that I'm here to leave a fingerprint on, and that's the whole basis of the fingerprint mark of life, essentially. So it's like that future direction. You know, what would the best version of yourself look like in 10 years' time? You know, like that kind of thing. It's like, because I'll be honest, again, sorry to fucking go on, but when I think about the landscape of cannabis, the landscape of the UK cannabis structure, and I think about you've got the official narrative through BBC and those channels, but you've also got this very obvious underground network of media that we're both participating in. And that underground network of media is crucial, and to the point where you could actually win entire wars based on how you describe the events that are going on. And I mean, obviously he's an asshole, and he'd done lots of terrible things, but Fidel Castro was the best example of this. That always pops to my mind, where they had like them, you know, Bay of Pigs, and then ended up there was 30 of them, 20 or 30 of these guys, the guerrillas, including Castro in the forests. In Cuba, they were fighting against obviously Batista at the time, and as a consequence of them controlling the narrative, so they had this small radio, and they were able to project their their theoretical victory. This whole "we're winning the war" to the mainstream channel. So the Cuban military heard that was going on. You had the Cuban people that were like, "All right, fucking hell, Fidel and his men are winning," whereas they weren't. They were in the fucking jungle, 30 of them, with this wee radio telling everybody that they were taking like posts and stuff like that and key strategic zones, to the point where the Cuban military turned on Batista and they ended up taking over, and Fidel essentially fucking managed to take it from there, led the country forever. Not talking about the guy's politics or his humanitarian influence, that's a side point. The whole basis is that you can win wars through narrative, and I think that's what's so crucial about the I don't want to say it that way, but the relative underground cannabis media networks that are going on. And that brings me back to what I'm talking about here, is that yourself, when I think about yourself, that's you're like fucking top of the tree for that. I mean, the opportunity. The other thing I'll point out for this as well is, I'm aware from your side we're very similar that way. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like, it feels like you're in a situation where if you stopped, you would just be less than a fucking grain of dust in the wind. But the whole point is, everybody that did something extraordinary felt that way at that time. And what happened was they maintained continuous progression, the correct habits, and they ended up manifesting the thing that was for them. And it's not until they look backwards, they're like, fuck, it was a domino effect the whole time. But when you're there, it seems like it's all separate. And that's what takes me to this thing, is that when I think about yourself and in the future in 10 years' time, it's really like the possibilities are kind of endless. You know, the opportunities, because we don't know what's arriving. And that's all I think, is that when you think about that circumstance, I mean, we're of a similar age as well. So there's a few questions here relating to that, which I'd like to get to. But when you think about that process, think about the process of the trauma and tragedy you're given at the time, the stabilization of your current skill set and the work that you're producing now, the future, the pinnacle of what you would attempt to walk towards, what would that look like?
It depends on, do we win the war, or is there a ceasefire? Do we move into a Prohibition 2.0 paradigm? I can't quite see beyond the battlefield right now. I'm aware there's a world out there. That is entirely the motivations of why I'm choosing to fight, as it were. If there is a victory in a way that I feel promotes liberty and isn't a slippery slope towards, like I said, a compounding of the most pernicious aspects of prohibition onto the populace, then who knows? You know what I mean? I've always admired like stand-up comedians. I've always thought I quite like being on stage. I don't know if I'm funny, but I try sometimes, you know. Politics was always something that interested me as a kid. I always said that the reason I got into this, in a way, was to legitimize my voice at the other end of it. If I was to speak for people and to try and speak truth to power, to not necessarily go into national politics, but to local, to represent people I give a shit about, that I would never lie about drugs. So the war has to be over. This has to cease in order for me to, I don't know, feel comfortable in my own skin. Because for all I have, you know, the protection of a prescription, I have, you know, who I am and the connections I have in the local sort of area, and the networks and the life that I live, and the knowledge that I have, and the ability to handle myself with police, I'm still having my life restrained. I'm still in some form mentally shackled by this. I have to be panicked every time I see a cop car, hear a siren. Do you know what I mean? Hear a loud knocking too early or too late. That's what I'm fighting for, the cessation of that, because then I can truly flourish into what I'm supposed to be. I don't know what that is yet. As you said, that's what I've always thought of. And as you were speaking of these patterns and the time frame of it within sort of the human experience, one of the things that was most profound to me in my early 20s was the idea of my 10,000th day. It just became so overwhelming to me. So I think I went to Amsterdam in the end for it. I was like, no, I'm going to go solo travel. I'm going to go, because I was agoraphobic for a long period of time. I was, you know, terrified of my own letterbox because I didn't pay bills. I couldn't budget. I was just so disenfranchised from the world and just so broken by it. And so I just, forced myself into these uncomfortable situations. I'll go solo travel. I'll go do all these things. And, went away and made my 10,000th day special. It was around 27, I think, something like that. And I think that there's something in thinking of it in days like that, because for all the number of days that the average human will have is quite a large number and hard to sort of quantify in your own mind. It makes you reflect on your actions, I feel, day to day rather than year to year. I'm approaching my birthday in a couple of weeks now, and already my brain has gone into sort of analytical mode, and I'm already planning, the fire in the woods and sitting on a beach with a changa pipe or something, and doing that's what we call it, the shadow work or whatever, and not just look at the victories of my year, but look at the losses, the things that I could have done, should have done better, the things that I will aspire to do better in the future. And I think that self-critical, analytical, reflective kind of meditation is important, as long as we don't become too critical of ourselves, because then you internalize that voice. And I've had that voice internalized, and it's the Cherokee proverb, of the two wolves.
No.
So it's an old Cherokee proverb or it's attributed to the Cherokee tribe. I don't know. How these things get broken through social media and things over the years. But it basically says there's a grandfather sat with his grandson around a fire, and the grandfather explains to the grandson that there are two wolves inside. One is light, and he is beauty, and he is compassion, and his kindness and strength and honor. And I probably butchered the descriptive terms there, but you get what I'm aspiring to here. And the other is dark. It is greed. It is, hedonism. It is, egoism. It is, selfishness, viciousness, violence. And the grandson asks the grandfather, which wolf wins? And the grandfather replies, well, it's the one you feed. Mm-hmm. And that has haunted me since I read it as a teenager. I think even maybe back on MySpace back in the day. Mm-hmm. Because I feel that every day. You say about the conscious attempts. You're right. There is your diet in terms of what you consume with media, food, even like social energy with the people you choose to be around, the relationships you carry. But there's also this way that you interpret your position in the world. Mm-hmm. And that is so fragile in all of us. And none of us realize that it's an ever swinging spectrum. That just because you're on and up doesn't mean you'll never be down. Just because you've never experienced the down doesn't mean it's not there. And again, we tend to lessen that in others and to go, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is a ridiculous, absurd thing that actually initially was meant to describe something you couldn't do, which is an irony. But yeah, I think
I like that. The boy standing there wearing sandals, mate. Fuck.
Yeah. And so I think there are these patterns to observe in ourselves, and we have to observe things through our own perspective and to not internalize others. I'm always hypercritical of even my own cannabis consumption. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I'm obviously respectful of where I consume still, but I'm still obviously going to go and live my life. If I'm on a beach, I'm enjoying it. If I happen to be passing a family, I'll knock the cherry off. Mm-hmm. I'll spark it up when I'm downwind of them a couple of steps away. Mm-hmm. Do you know, I'll engage in that kind of manner, but there's still sort of moments where, say, if I've gone camping and I'm on mushrooms at like 3 PM, and I've built a campsite and somebody comes walking with a dog sort of thing, that it feels very like, whoa, and you don't quite know how to engage and interact with the world. And I think we need more spaces where we can do those kind of things that are not just festivals, that are not these chaotic spaces. We need more time in nature, even if you don't want to trip in nature. Just taking that time is a trip in of itself, because you're forcing yourself out of the comfort and rigidity of these 90-degree angled bloody walls and this construct of our society, and you force yourself to have to think in different ways, or at least give yourself the opportunity for neuroplasticity to kick in and different thoughts to occur.
Interestingly, actually, you reminded me of, I must have been about 17 or 18, and me and a couple of friends had walked down to this golf course, a local golf course, to get mushrooms, and we went down there, picking them, scanning them, and walking back up the road. It's pitch black by this point, but it's like, so we've walked off the golf course and it's pitch black, and as I'm walking across, and you can see the street lights as this orange fucking, this artificial feeling as a consequence of the light, and as we're walking down the street, the contrast between that, it was just a golf course, all trees, bushes, grass, all that kind of stuff, to then the housing estate, it felt artificial. And it's bizarre to anybody that's not consumed psychedelics, but that was the feel. I mean, you're walking down, you're looking at it, and just from the process of looking at it, the feeling of an artificial structure was present. It was really, it wasn't like to the point where, oh, I can't walk down there, but it was certainly noticeable to the point where I was like, there's something incorrect going on here as a consequence of that. Side point as well, when you're talking about the Cherokee story, the parable, and I was like, one of the things that was most explicit about that was that that's the yin and yang. That's what that is. It's like the light and the dark. That's the yin and yang representation. And I find it interesting as well when you're talking about the nature of society being so hypercritical to those that have fallen in one way or another, through habits and lack of discipline, or name the fucking the fall. And they're like, that's terrible, we shouldn't be doing that. When the reality is, what we should be acknowledging it is that individual that's experiencing at that time, that's their season for that chaotic element. There's a season for this thing. One of the quotes I've said lots on the channel is there are seasons which exist out with weather, and these are seasons like, and one of I said to somebody recently that were down, and I was like, you wouldn't wear shorts in the middle of winter and wonder why you're cold. I was like, so applying poor quality behaviors at a time that's going to be turbulent to you is probably, it's lacking in judgment, but it's inevitable that you're going to like hyperextend the difficulty because it's your season for difficulty. It's not as if, and that's one of the things that's interesting, like the Buddhist first law of Buddhism is life is suffering, and it allows you that dynamic of expectation. And it's not that you should be sitting there fingers crossed going, I wonder how bad this is going to be. It shouldn't be like that. But what it's saying is you can protect yourself relatively so as a consequence of adapting particular progressive behaviors which limit the likelihood of you being harmed when the season shows up. And it's like that thing where the metaphor of the individual in the ocean, and they're rowing every day and they're trying to reach this island, and some days the waves are fucking 40 foot and knocking the boat left, right and centre and all that kind of stuff. It'd be to your detriment to stop rowing that day. It wouldn't be like, oh, it's terrible, I'm never going to get any further forward, so I'll just not bother rowing. You have to double your effort as a consequence of this difficult landscape. And that's, again, it's just the whole basis of the stage in life from a personal side that I'm at is this. I don't know if it's an age thing. Again, we're similar age. Your birthdays are actually pretty fucking close as well. Mine's the 17th of next month. When's yours?
9th.
Yeah, 9th, exactly. So that's fucking hell. That's pretty close. And I don't know if it's just a stage of life that I'm like super analytical, but at the same time, I remember being like 9, 10 and having a similar dynamic. But it's like, it just feels to be that there is that cyclic process. There is this fractal representation through action, and the most you can make from that situation is kind of providing yourself a template of a destination, and as a consequence of applying the template for your destination, you can adopt behaviors which further you along there, instead of just being at the whim of the chaotic winds of the sea. You know what I mean? At least the very minimum, you've got a direction. At the very minimum, you've got this progressive stage that you can walk towards, And I find that, so when you break that down and put that onto the cannabis landscape, put it into the media elements and all that kind of stuff, is every single one of us are on an individual journey, every single one of us. And I just find it, I can't help it, I just find it extremely exciting, because again, that's why I look at alchemy and all these different things, because alchemy provides the most empirical formula for what it is that we're going through. It's the transmutation of the soul, but it's also the transmutation of the psyche, and I think this is one of the things that I find super fascinating. It's kind of going to get relatively abstract here, but the nature of this macro representation of societal shift over geometric repetitions, and then it's broken down into your lifestyle, it's broken down into your lifespan, and it's like this season of change which exists out with weather and your daily actions like that gets broken all the way down to this neurochemical formulation, which these neurochemicals are crucial in determining the repetition in which you're going to engage in. And this is what I find so fascinating. I was like, how much fucking, like when it gets to that stage, you know what I mean? It's I just find that very interesting. Just the basis and what role they play, and on the wider concept of what we think separate from that, our neurochemical makeup, and it's having this vast fucking impact on a macro scale, on a societal international landscape. Yeah, come up fucking abstract there, Simpa. So I mean, I would just essentially what's your thoughts on that kind of thing?
To just stick it with the people for now, to park the other manifestations, aberrations of this. Yeah, I agree. There needs to be two foundational points, I think, to be able to map one's life: your foundation and destination. And both fluctuate. The conscious element adds a quantum issue to what you're saying, because I agree in terms of the manifestation of the pattern iteration. I'm so much neurodivergent that I see patterns. I solve movies in 10 minutes. I get bored by most media. I love it when I see something. I'm like, I always joke with that last going, I didn't write this one. Whatever, because I just go, I don't know. But that pattern recognition is a strong thing, and you can see it, and we see it in that people's behavioral cycles, their patterns, their roles. I think the conscious element is the mitigator. We cannot just act as a reduction valve, but it's far more complex. Because I'm thinking of it as operating as like neurovalves. Think of it like liquid flowing up, and so the different valves turning on and off, and say you're in this epigenetic makeup, so your environment means that your genetics turn to this settings, which is then gonna release these hormones. The quantum element is the consciousness, because your consciousness can change your foundation and your destination. So I'm constantly doing it. The narrative I had about my early life when I was in my younger 20s and I was incredibly self-destructive, self-harming every day, was in and out of crisis services, was in a pretty fucked up place for quite a while there. My destination was locked in something. But then as I explored my own potential, my foundation was locked, my potential destination, and it opened and changed that. And so then creating this analytical behavioral pattern, this new cycle of manifesting within that fractal shape, that's modifying it. I'm thinking like sand and the ball, that electric thing that moves the ball on the sand and it reshapes it when you change the current that runs through it. I think the consciousness is the current that's changing it. So the pattern will form to like gravity and the other forces, and they would then be the other elements that we're speaking of. But the conscious element that I remember choosing to change my story, to reassess my destination, and to forcibly sit with myself in the horrors of what people would call bad trips, or, you know, psychotic breaks, or whatever you want to describe them as, pathologize them as. To me, I was fighting demons, literal demons, not like, oh, God and Jesus or whatever. Like, my consciousness manifested an abstract thing that I had to deal with. There was never monsters or aliens or little green, none of the Strassman kind of manifestations of entities or any of that. It was just me reliving trauma. It was me having to make better decisions, face darkness, you know, shine a light in the spaces of my consciousness that I otherwise couldn't. And that I felt that change my body. When I changed my diet, when I started exercising, doing yoga, meditating, doing different things, I could feel the chemical difference. Do you know what I mean? So I think the consciousness modulates it, but I think that's what I mean about the fragility of it. In the, if we're pumped up and full of ego, you're on the higher end of the spectrum. Nothing can touch you, and you're all gravy. But then if you fall to the other end of the spectrum, and you're dirt, you're the worst of the worst, you are the current villain of this era, then that you can't get to that destination. Worse, you won't even have a destination. And I think without those 2 points to lock you in, you just free float within it. And any pattern can manifest because you don't have the grounding points that will give it, I suppose, two-dimensional rule. It's we know there's 2 axes, so we can at least plot something on it. Without that, there's no ability to discern who we are. And I think that comes with the hardest thing, which most people avoid. And hands up, I fucking was that person for the longest time. And hell, still am some days. To be hypercritical, to be analytical, to sit with us. Why the fuck do you do that? Don't just and excuse your own behavior. Don't justify it because others do it or whatever. Like I said, you have to make your decision from your perspective, not how others will reflect upon your decision, or how will this look on social media. We do enough of that self-censoring. We have to be honest, at least to ourselves, because otherwise I think we're seeing the chaos overtake the organized elements of the universe. And I think, again, that's consciousness, is that we take the fluctuations of the chaos and the atrophy and kind of go, well, we can build something in the middle of this. And as long as we're conscious to it, all houses are built on sand. To really butcher a bunch of metaphors there, but do you know what I mean? In terms of everything is temporary, but we give it purpose and permanence or semi-permanence through our perspective. This is a house because it's a house. As soon as people decide they don't want a house, they'll knock it down. So it wouldn't be that a house. So it's our intention kind of drives that reality. So I think then the conscience is the biggest element to all of this, but we get so lost in going, oh, well, your grandfather had this, or 23andMe says this, or your doctor says, fuck all of that shit. You can irreparably change yourself through consciousness. We see it with people of extreme obesity that suddenly become bastions of health. Do you know what I mean? They become like mega runners and shit. We see it all the time with people that reverse illnesses like diabetes, and fucking people that fight cancer and go on to do superhuman things. You know, people that lose limbs and climb Everest. There's something in us that, as you said, the trauma galvanizes us. It gives us that opportunity to face that crossroad. And I don't think it's a personal failure of anybody. I hate the language that we have around this area because it seems to put blame on an individual. And I don't think that they're necessarily responsible. It's the culmination of their events up to that point. If you haven't been challenged and you're hit with the biggest challenge of your life, it's like trying to sprint having never fucking walked. You're going to fail before you've started. If you faced all those challenges and you've managed to overcome them and grow and develop as a human, when you face that crossroad and that biggest challenge again, you've got a higher percentage of probability of succeeding, of doing the right thing by you at least. And fuck, we're all individuals, and I think that's all you can do these days. I've spent enough of my life trying to do right by others. But if I truly maximize my potential and who I am as a person, I will do better for others. And that's, again, another hard reality, because we have to live with the yin and the yang of the social element and the individual element of human. And I think at the minute there's a hyper fixation on individualism through consumerism, and basically as a consequence of like COVID and the lockdowns and all of that shit, I think it's really rewired the populace mind hive. And I think that's kind of just infecting, being downloaded into people that are not doing this work. And I don't mean that to say that, oh, I'm so good and what. My life is no different than anybody else's. I get up every day, I got to shit, I got to shower, I got to look after myself. But in the process of doing that, I try every day to find a way to, appease what I'm doing in this space, to feel like I'm making a difference, but also to better myself, so that if I do face that crossroad, if we do get to a point where I really need to be the best me, and I'm training for that, you know what I mean? I don't know if it was Lao Tzu or whoever the quote's attributed to, but it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. Yeah. And I don't attribute that to meaning let's get massive and raw, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's about having a multifaceted skill set that means you're adaptable in any given situation. That's what Darwin came to. You know, he said that it's not the strongest to survive, it's the most adaptive. Yeah. That's what rules. That's why viruses and bacteria and shit will kick our asses in the long term every time. Mammals, we're a blip. These fuckers, they're for life.
No, I feel like really simple. And the thing is, it's really interesting because when I was listening to you speak there, it's the foundation, which I seen it, is that thing of when you're talking about people being hypercritical to those that are fallen, or the poor characteristics, or the tendency for self-destruction and all these different things. But then the kind of, which can make people fall at the hurdles when they arrive inevitably. Because there's a few people that pop to mind as well that they have a tendency for like, just ignore it. There is no point of, personal improvement or triumph in the face of difficulty. Just ignore it, fuck it, too tired, life's too short, and those kind of apathetic, nihilistic descriptions, to refrain from them from working on themselves, it's going to make them stronger in the long term. It's fundamentally regressive and corrosive to the society, because if we all adopted this situation, then you're not going to progress through any form of difficulty, and there's going to be a relative standstill over time.
Is it not though, sort of, again, not to attribute this to any one individual taking this stance, but is it not a form of like immature traumatic response and protest? Do you know, I still struggle with this, even like today. If somebody tells me to do something, even if I'm doing it, there's a big part of my brain goes, fuck you, and just wants to like, nah, don't, shit, done, and just walk away. Do you know what I mean? And no, I totally understand. I think that's all within us. And I think that, again, if you're not, why would I give energy for something if I feel that can't get better? That's where I say I'm at right now with this kind of, I don't want to say it's apathy, but of having to go back through the filter, because right now it feels like the mountain is insurmountable. I'm getting over every false summit, and it's just getting taller and taller.
Well, the thing is, one of the things I will say about that is it seems to be the formula necessary for anything, as you're aware. And I think that's what's interesting. So in those circumstances where it's like you're engaged, because the race never finishes. You know, the finish line never arrives. It's just what you do is you just focus on the next thing you're running towards or something like that. But I do think that that's an interesting concept of embracing integrity characteristics, regardless of what you're facing, because it seems to be that it's that if you're embracing things that have integrity at the core foundation of it, then inevitably whatever hardship or relative ease that you're going to be given, you're going to triumph inevitably. And I think that's one of the things that's so important about the filtering process of getting rid of our own poor quality characteristics that are present in all of our psyche. So I mean, there was this thing I was thinking the other day when people I think it was mentioned earlier, is they're hypercritical to those that are like, just say they've got poor quality hygiene, or this guy smokes fucking 200 cigarettes a day, or he's an alcoholic, or he's this, and this. What you're not looking at what you're looking at there is the physical manifestation of shadow elements of the psyche which are present in all of us. You're just seeing it hyper explicit in this individual. And I think this is what's really important, is that we should be in a circumstance where, and what's interesting about that is that that's actually that's like really old information. That's like, I mean, going all the way back to like fucking the Greeks and before that. But I mean, even fast forward to contemporary psychology, that's like, yeah, I mean, Carl Jung, the shadow, blah, blah, that's like, you know, we know this, and yet on a society basis, it's not even considered, because obviously you have to have at least a minimum understanding of the of the psyche and psychology.
It's interesting because we do have the hypernormalization of certain terms. So people will go, "Oh, you projected."
Yeah.
They'll say that is a common term in our parlance, but they will not really understand. They will only use it in a defense of themselves to try and defend themselves from something that, again, their shadow is defensive of.
That's right.
It's required in all conversations and all relationships. The more intimate the relationship, the more the fucking shadow work is necessary. That's right. Because this impliedness that we all have of going, well, you mean this and I mean this, so that's this. And all conversation, I'm starting to learn through conversations with the missus and whatever else, and others is close to me, that it's the third thing. Your conversation is a third thing. A relationship is a third thing. They're never attacking you. They're never attacking the thing. You're not attacking them. You're being critical of the third thing. So you're putting the thing and going, oh, let's pause. Let's have a look at this thing. We both care for this thing. Let's look at this thing.
Yeah.
And so you're stepping beyond it. And in doing that, it's training a muscle of the same thing. If you're aware of your psyche, you're aware of your darkness, your dark wolf, I think it was white and black wolf is the way they described it in the thing, but I used light and dark for the same sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Transferable.
But yeah. And same with the yin and yang. I've still got a yin and yang buckle that's like in the shape of the crab. Right. That I got when I was like 15, that I wear when I wear jeans or whatever, because it's that symbol of that. It's that unity. You have to be not just aware of it, because once you're aware of it, you can utilize it. Mm-hmm. There is strength in your darkness, but only when you know what the fuck it is. Yeah. Then when you know where your boundaries are, you then know your limits to push from. Same with the strengthening muscles training. You will do your workout until you find you know where you are, and then you know your limit to push through and your growth. Then you rest, you be analytical. What can I do? Can I do it? Boom, and you go through it. The same thing is true of the way that you assess your behavior and your position in the world. Is you kind of, especially if you run into the same problem several times, that's a really good indicator that life's going, it might be you. Yeah. It's not say you're the problem. It just might be you understood a word wrong, or you're holding a position that's 30 years out of date or whatever, and no one's ever challenged you on it, or there's a multitude of different other factors. And again, this is where I think that it's like a self-growing intellect. The more you get into this, the more the brain wants to know more about this. It increases over time. Mm-hmm. I think the same is true then this analytical behavior, that the more you do it, it's strengthening that muscle, so you get smarter to yourself, so you can predict your own behavior. So then it's not a case of going, oh, I want to avoid this place because I don't want to get triggered. That's page 1, sentence 1. You're on the right path. Don't pause there and end your story. Get to the fucking end of the book. Mm-hmm. That's an indicator for you, not for others. No one needs to know you're triggered. You need to know you're triggered and to learn how to overcome that behavior, or to avoid the stimuli of that behavior. Once you can take responsibility for it and remove yourself from that victim mentality of it, you can really strengthen yourself and actually take responsibility for shit. It's one of the single most, I don't want to say attractive, but like endearing properties of a human being is for them to fuck up and go, entirely my shit. Boom. That is humbling. That is respectful. That is integrity that I want to see. That is what should be on a pedestal in our society. Mm. But we don't have that individual responsibility because we have a 24-hour news cycle, a self-censoring media system, a social media system. We have no ways to hold each other accountable meaningfully anymore. Mm.
Interestingly, I think one of the things that pops to mind as well is podcasts. So podcasts have like kind of sprung up in the past 10, 15 years. Mm. And podcasts are like a hyper example of the human ability to communicate. You know, it's like an interpersonal circumstance. Immediately you're embraced with like 1, 5, whatever the number that's in the podcast. And it's that like this, because I thought to myself, I was like, I wonder what that means for the human race, because we went from this obviously relatively archaic, to say the least, format of media or news interaction in the format of like, oh, you watch an organization or a network or something like that that's out with the reach. But then it's been like, it's now became like hyper personal. You're now able to, like, anybody can do this. We're doing it. You capture an audience and engage in dialogue based in the context or the theme and what you want to discuss. And I think that's just one of the things that's popped to mind, is just that I wonder what that means for the human race, because what that does then, if we're doing hyper conversations, you see it often when they have like males and females, and they're describing the current hookup culture and what's expected from both sides, and like of like 5 females on one side, 5 males on the other. I mean, this is the most explicit example of that, like that dynamic, because then you've got women that are describing their position in society and why they act in a certain way, and then you've got men describing their position, why they act in a certain way. And what is the point of that? The point is to reach a conclusion which is sustainable for everybody, and that's the nature of that. And if you've got that on a wide global landscape of podcasts, then that's the whole theme. You're attempting to reach a much more unified ground which is sustainable and progressive for everybody involved as a consequence of dialogue.
I think that's a good assessment of the intentions and the core integrity of individuals like ourselves. A lot of the podcasts, I think you just described by their nature, they're not looking for that middle ground. They're actively doing the opposite of that third thing. They're not going life, third thing, male perspective, female perspective. Oh, that's interesting. Why? It's a competition designed to cut it down now for views for shorts on YouTube. I think the TikTok has irreparably changed content production in the way that like Vine was theorized to, but collapsed because it was too early. And everybody's copied TikTok. So Reels have popped up on Instagram. Instagram's completely fucked itself as far as I'm concerned. It's such a horrible iteration of this app that, historically was a wonderful thing. Chronologically, keeping up with your fucking friends, very limited shadow banning, good moderation. It was a good app back in the early days. And then so Facebook doing the same, moving towards videos, and it's as these things have changed, people now are just riding the algorithmic version updates. So there's all version 7.9.2.6.4. Oh, this means that this is now out. And it's the same with the tax dodgers. So the people that go to university to get the degree in fucking legal finance and whatever, and their job becomes, here's the current law, you get to write the next one with all these guys, write all these loopholes in, start these businesses, and then sell the exploitation of this to get these guys money and create those systems of and it's the same thing. It's just farming views. Someone like Mr. Beast, I've seen a few of his bits of content, and that's not for me. It's very mainstream, very just, it's people's stuff, and it's whatever. I've got nothing against anybody's content. That's not what I'm saying here. But he's made a point of saying that he is formulaically producing this shit, that he has understood how to crack this, that it's just, oh, this plus this plus this, I do this equals this, and I get this. And then he got to a certain point where then YouTube can't let him fail. And then you get pally with the producers. And again, then everything becomes artificial and inflated and a false fucking dichotomy. It's a false reality. It's not what it pertains to be. And so then you've got content producers that, unless like you and I, we could smash our numbers if we put it into that formula, but it would betray our integrity. Our message wouldn't go to the people we would want it to. And this is, I think, the problem with these systems, is that because of the algorithm echo chambers and the bubbles that are created, because society wants to hyper-normalize this element or this argument or this binary, which is basically what any of this is. They'll go, oh, some trans activist is popular in fucking Australia. Is it Dylan Mulvaney? And they go, oh, this is now a time for this. And then you end up with 3 months of hyper content of like pro and anti-trans. And then something happens with Russia, Ukraine. Oh, but anti this, pro this. You get a false binary of something that they know people will have an opinion on. And because of the way that self-censoring, there's a maxim, I can't remember what it is. And it's basically for internet discourse. It's like trolling. So you want to troll in such a way that on a post that you not going for the first person, you're trying to get extra people in, that they'll say something so extreme from the other side that the next person comes in with something so extreme, and the argument, and it just evolves into insanity. That's what I feel is happening with communication now. We're being forced in these false binaries. You are either pro everything we tell you, or you are anti and you are bad, and we will shadow ban you and we will restrict you and you're the bad side. I mean, the TikTokers literally say there's a good side and a bad side of TikTok. it's a mental thing that is happening here. That there's the pre-approved, you know. I don't know how much controversy I can bring up here with this, of saying, like, you know, certain pushing of medications and procedures, and then everybody that would question that became the antithesis of that. You became an automatically anti this thing. And it happened in many other things with the lockdowns and various other procedures and protocols that were put in place against the populace. The people went, I've got some questions. You must be a terrorist. You must want to kill people's grandmas. It was just in a hyper insanity that we've lost that middle ground, the common space, where it used to be that you can be whoever you are in your home and in your safe spaces, in your pubs or whatever it is, wherever your culture meets. If you're Christians, go to church. You can be maximum Christian because that's your church. I'm not for segregation. This is what I'm saying. But the public space in between these institutions used to be accepted, that everybody could, but you're you within reason. You don't scream and fucking shout. You don't, you know, somebody passes you on the street, you move to the side. But basic structured etiquette that I think is I sound like an old fucking man here, but I think that our online discourse, I think, is detrimentally affecting our ability to socially interact physically. Neighbors don't know their names anymore, but they'll know the names of fucking 100, 200 celebrities and obscure YouTubers, streamers, whatever, and they'll know more about that person and the intimate in and outs of their lives than they will the people in their vicinity and area. We're so detached from our vicinity, and it's
interesting because the thing that pops to mind, Simpa, is like they've connected everybody globally, but they've detached everybody locally.
Oh. Sorry, I didn't hear any of that. The Zoom lady was shouting at me.
No, it's all right. No, it's just I don't know what the fuck's up with this, man, because I'm paying for it every month, so I don't know why this is. But it's been a while. Let's say the last interview I did was like 2 or 3 months ago, so yeah, it's just fucking knows my hate to check out. But no, this is really enjoying this chat, Simple Man, honestly. And I fully agree with the same situation you're describing. You know, it's the algorithm seems to be. It seems to be. Do you know who pops to mind? I'm pretty certain the guy is the Walt Whitman. I think Walt Lippmann, and he did the public relations or public opinion. I think that was his book, Public Opinion. And what he did was he did like this analysis of journalism in the beginning of the 20th century. It was like 1910, something like that. And he was talking about how, as a consequence of technology that was going on at the time, there was a greater and greater distance between the event and the individual consuming what had happened in the event. And so you've got more and more journalists involved, more and more editors, blah, blah. And the filtration period of the real-time events was much less than it had been a century before as a consequence of technology. We're now in such a situation where there's not even really a filtration of events. That happens, seems to be periodically. What there seems to be is a purposeful construction of events as a consequence of those that have the algorithm in play, those that are in positions of personal benefit. And we see this often taking it back to cannabis. We see that with the cannabis thing when it's, you know, wins, when you've got people that are showing up at, you know, like events and stuff like that, and you've got numbers that would immediately shout to the general public, look, we need to have a change here. Never getting recorded, never getting, there's no footage on the BBC or all the mainstream media and all these kind of things. So it's kind of it's a very interesting time for the consumption of information, just on a general scale. And I do find it worrying, because it's, again, I think it was a quote, Edward Snowden has said that. He says it's very difficult to tell the truth because most people are living a lie, you know, and it's that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, if we were to go then, and in fact, just talking about cannabis, since you started the podcast, what changes do you see that's been going on? Because I mean, you've interviewed fucking loads. What are you on, 110, 120 interviews in? You know, it's substantial. That's a lot of fucking content, man.
Yeah, I think we're doing 117. Chad Westport was 117.
Yeah, shout out to Chad on your cell, lad.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed that one. I enjoy all the podcasts, but it's, like I said, I think you can see, for anyone that's really watched all of them, you can see kind of the week I've had. You can see kind of what's going on in my world. I don't really obviously get too personal in it. But you can see whether I'm drained, I've got the energy and sort of the time, and how I can present and articulate. I always try and bring my best to the table, obviously. But some weeks I just struggle. I just struggle to, I guess it's struggling with my own ego and going, this isn't good enough. I can do better, and like tripping over myself, you know, developing almost like a form of yips, of being like performance anxiety while performing, sort of thing, of being like, no, but I can, and thinking of what are people going to think of it, and you know, when you just get too, I guess, in your own head with it.
Yeah, I mean, because again, we're in very similar dynamic. We're both creating content here and both in a situation where we're not being monetarily embossed as a consequence, which is a challenge. So, I mean, do you feel that on those weeks? Because it's interestingly, side point as well, when you look back on your archive of content, this is what I've thought to myself, that when I look back on the content I've produced, what each video is a timestamp of my emotional circumstance at that moment. And that's what it's like. It's like, so there's videos that I look back, and it's funny because it's in COVID, that's when it really started now. So there's video of me with a fucking shaved head and shit like that. I'm like, oh, bro, that's painful, man. But it's like, when I look back on this, that's what I see. It's the same with the books. It's like there's a timestamp of an emotional situation for me by that, just remembering it. So, I mean, and I often, as a consequence of work and life getting in the way, and I feel that as well. And it's actually perfect, 'cause it touches back on the tailoring your content thing. So I feel that I'm in a situation where I get waves of like frustration of like, come on, man, like bring fucking, and it sounds ridiculous because it's not the end goal, but I was like, bring finance in so it can make me sustainable so I can do this full time. And that's the main thing. I want to do this all the time. I want to have my fucking, I don't need anything above my bills paid, fucking bread and water and electricity, man. I'm just cover that and I'm fine, because then I'll okay to do the craft. So there's that frustration that I feel that can sometimes be heavy. But that's when the waves are hitting 40 feet that day. And then there's the other side of the point, what just happened relatively recently, if I'm being honest, where as a consequence of the algorithm we're talking about not highlighting the content, or I mean, and that's what we said before, was that the subscriber bases went up, but the viewership has went down. And I'm like, how the fuck is that? So it's like I'm producing more stuff, I've got more subscribers, more people following me, but the people that are consuming it are less. How the fuck does that work out? And that's how I see it, is it must be a shadow ban thing, or maybe it's the insecurity thing of like, maybe I should just sharpen the content or whatever. But as a consequence of over that period of time, that I've not reached somewhere that I thought I would be in a monetary stage that can be sustainable, what it's done for me is it's made me prioritize just creating content that I like. And so that's so the past couple of days, the past couple of weeks in particular, and then same with doing the movie and like the animations, it's like I'm now just making shit that is for me, It's like, and that's what, and I feel relatively grateful as a consequence of these infringements on the popularity of the channel or the content, because it's made me show me, it's like, the reason I started doing this in the first place is because what you were mentioning before, is because I love this. Like, I fucking love this stuff. I love the conversations. I love the ability to be creative. I love to have an outlet. I love to have a format for dialogue. I love all that kind of thing. And as a consequence of a societal requirement, which is you need to have money to fucking live, then it's not happened. And that's one of the frustrations that I feel, because I've started a new job recently, and everybody's fucking brilliant. It's a great place to be. Really like being there. But I feel every moment that I'm there that I'm not being my true self. Like, I'm in a position because I need to go back, and I need to go home to then. So one of the techniques, that's what I was saying to one of the fellas at work the other day, was like, one of the techniques that I've done to make sure that I'm always being the guy I want to be each day is, before I leave in the morning, I'll create something related to the channel, some form of content in the morning, and then I'll do it at night, even if it's a paragraph, even if it's half an image in the morning, even if it's a paragraph or half an image at night, because what I'm doing is I'm capturing that full day at the beginning and at the end with who I want to be, and the bit in the middle is the necessary requirement to live, because you hate to go somewhere else. So I mean, I don't know, is that one of the things you feel, that it's the algorithm that kind of squashes the passion, or also that society, like, you need to live, you need to pay rent and fucking buy shit, food and all that kind of stuff, and because your passion is not tailoring to that requirement, there's a frustration that then sometimes leads to my own insecurity of like, fuck, what's the point of me doing this? Am I doing the right thing? Am I wasting my time doing this? All that kind of shit.
Yeah, entirely. Both weigh quite heavy. I've been trying to push towards 1,000 subs for quite a while now, which, compared to the number of videos and the hours of content watched, exactly, it doesn't sort of match up, as it were. I understand people sort of hesitant because of the nature of the channel, obviously, and it being so open with what I do. But yeah, it's that kind of to and fro on that eternal seesaw of, I don't know, it's the principal Skinner meme, is it me or no, it's the children, they're wrong. It's that's what's constantly in my head, of going, well, exactly, I'm doing what I want. I'm reaching out to the people I want. I'm trying to produce the content I want. I've now, the more I've got into it, if some weeks, a lot of issues I have with guests, because I'm such a small channel still, I'm not really prioritized. So people will fit you in, sort of thing. So then people reschedule. So I'll have a dropout and lose a week. I'll have a dropout, lose a week. Oh, we'll move it next week. And I'll move a guest that would have otherwise recorded. And you end up with these sort of periods where I can't keep that consistency up.
Yeah. Which is insane, considering some of the guests you've had on, man. You had Tommy Chong, you have fucking Dennis McKenna, the list goes on, man. You know what I mean? Chad Westport, cannabis scene, Chad's a fucking big deal.
Exactly. There's a lot of people still on my list. I've got a clipboard that hangs above my desk with some very, very ambitious names. Then some people I'll persistently email. You know, like I'm forever emailing fucking Heidi, Henry Rollins' assistant. You know, I've heard back from fucking Willie Nelson. Got just basically a retirement email, like, no, I'm not doing anymore. So it's like, fair one. He's put in his time. I'll give him that. But yeah, it's exactly as you said.
It's funny that, sorry man, I actually got my version of that is I emailed fucking what's it, Robert Greene. I've emailed him twice, you know, the author, and both times it's his email, his assistant. And one of the things I thought to myself was like, I wonder if he's even got an assistant. I wonder if he's like, oh, this is Robert Greene's assistant. I wonder if he's just like, bro, fucking leave me alone, man.
That's one way to do it. That is one way to do it. But yeah, it's doing that, as we were describing, that kind of work before, of having to sit with that uncomfortable feeling and going, well, as I've always said, this project, if nothing else, it's a time capsule. So if then, as we're already seeing, people trying to rewrite certain narratives, I can literally go, no, episode 25, I'm just pulling a number out of my head, I don't know, but like episode 25, 45 minutes in, that person that did the thing told us how the thing happened.
Yeah.
It's locked. Do you know what I mean? Same with like the writing work. I've produced hundreds of blogs and articles at this point, and the Last Week in Weed series is something I love doing, but some weeks it takes a lot of fucking work because I scroll through. I've got a separate email address that just basically correlates all the I can't remember what you call them, like update the news headlines on Google. It just you can put in like keywords and it sends you lists of basically news stories and articles. I troll through some weeks hundreds of articles to find 3 that I really want to pick and really want to delve into. And sometimes it takes a hell of a long time to research and get the facts, because the mainstream, what they've reported, is not what the fucking thing is. As soon as you start digging into it, you're like, well, that's a lie. That's not, here's the other, and having a link and hyperlink everything and evidence everything to be able to say, well, no, here's exactly where my assumptions, my assertions are coming from based on these facts and this trail of information. And yeah, some weeks put 9 hours into it, but I could have made good wage in a different arena. But again, I've locked that in. For me, it's there. It's this time capsule, and some weeks get a lot more readership, other weeks get a lot less. So
I mean, have you ever thought, like, again, that's the reason why, and I'm purposely not mentioning really anything about it just because of what I talk about on your podcast. But the movie is an example of me upping my game. So it's like I've done it. Obviously, it was the comic books, single panel images to then a comics, single comics to then comic books to then animations, which is and then the next I was like, well, fuck, I need to do a movie to up the game. So I mean, inevitably, your writings lead towards a book or a substantial 20-page essay about a hypothesis which hasn't been touched on yet. I mean, is that something that because I mean, we mentioned this last time about doing a book. I mean, is that something that's you have formats, storyboards, or outlines of it, or is it just kind of like
I've got a few conceptual ideas of different things that I have been working on. I'm kind of stuck with I've had a few offers to do some ghostwriting work to get my first publication done with somebody else's work, as it were. Obviously, it'd be my writing, but in terms of the content and kind of final say. And I guess it's an ego thing. I'm nervous about what do I pick first? Do I do something fiction, non-fiction? Do I try and explain something through a story? Do I try and tackle like a dystopian novel? Do I try and write a how-to, a idiot's guide, a 101 to something? Or I'm not quite sure in what direction, because I guess I'm still, as you said about not feeling your own sort of position or your own influence, I'm not sure what I can speak on authority.
Do you know what's interesting?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it pops to mind, Simpa, right? So when you're like this, you've got a relatively a variety of instances you could, fiction, non-fiction, novel-based, fiction, fact-based, that kind of stuff, And one of the things that pops to mind, right? Because this is one of the reasons why, again, I'm fucking manic with it, but the thing that's creatively your fingerprint, it feels to me already lives outside. It's already in there, right? It's already in the air, and there's like a template that we just can't see right now, and we can just access it in daily action. So it seems to me that it really doesn't matter what it is that you choose first, because your masterwork is already waiting out there, and the thing that you choose first won't be that thing. It's just preparing you for the next stage, for the next stage, the next stage. It's then going to get you there. So if I would like, because that's what popped to mind, man. You need to get, you need to get started, man. Throw this down. People were waiting for it, and it's that kind of thing. It's
I really do, because some weeks I can knock out 4,000 words on different blogs, and it's like if I applied that in a different areas,
or just a direction. I mean, 4,000 words, like towards a book. Fucking hell, by the end of the month, if that's a week, by the end of the month, you're looking at, you just need to proofread it. You know what I mean? And it's that kind of stuff. It's I just find it really exciting and fascinating. And that's the reason I contacted Robert Greene in the first place, because he's written the best book on this that I've read is Mastery. And it seems to be that the examples that he gave of like extremely famous individuals, not by contemporaries, like, you know, like Leonardo da Vinci and Benjamin Franklin and like loads of other individuals, they're like, because he gives a biography of each one of them. And that's what's fascinating about it, and that's what makes it so exciting, because it's like, fucking hell, it's literally, it was already laid out for them. They didn't know. And the difficulty that came on their doorstep was like a key ingredient for making the fucking thing. You know, and it's mental, man.
Well, that's where I think, again, it's that foundation and destination. It's Kierkegaard. What's the Kierkegaard quote? Soren Kierkegaard. Life must be lived forward. No, life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards.
Right, perfect.
And yeah, and again, that's why it's important to have those moments of self-reflection to address the line that you're on, because we all have that little kid still in us somewhere, that little innocent little child. Every time you go, some animal or something, or you're just in nature and for a moment something grabs you, that's that little kid, that curious, innocent little being that just wants to play with the world.
Yeah. That's actually interesting you would use that description, because that's how I recently, because I'll be honest, it does feel like the more and more I've engaged in this and really upped my game to doing the craft and that kind of stuff, the more detached I feel psychologically from being able to integrate into a 9-to-5. It's really antithetical to doing your own creative, the thing that's divinely fucking unique to you. It's, you go into the work and you feel it dying. That's what I mean about do it first thing in the morning, do it last thing at night. And I just find that it's like as a consequence of pushing towards the thing that's uniquely you recapture that childlike sense of wonder for the world. That's what's going on. And that's why, like, I'm no meaning to be like an interrogating guy on this, man, but it's like try to find everybody's unique, like what's hidden inside you, man, and what's getting in the way. And one of the questions I've actually got written here is, it's like, how would you define yourself? Like, what would you, like author, podcaster, like, how would you define what it is that you do? There's a wide variety of it. And I think this is one of the key things about the whole visualization process, but also I did it on the Be Willing to Start, one of the Productive Path fucking books, one of the first ones I've done, because I'm going to do each chapter. And one of the things I said was like about whole, think of the guy in 20 years time, the best one you want to be. There's 10 parallel universes, and one of the guys is like fucking like a footballer, another one's a baker, one of them could be in prison, etc., etc. Now there's one of them that's the best variety of yourself. There's 10 of them, one of them's the best. What would that guy be, and what's the characteristics that they would incorporate, and start applying them to your life today as a concept? Because then what's going to happen then is you're going to steadily walk towards that. You're going to do the reduction of the entropy that life has towards chaoticness. You're going to embrace a large variety of order as a consequence of identifying just characteristics of the future guy. And that's one of the interesting things that when I think about like the channel, like, I'm not joking, man. Like, if I had the boy's mum here, she would be telling you about how much of a manic transition I went through. Like, I went from this guy that was like fucking drug taking, Valium, falling asleep on the couch and shit, like ultimate fucking, like, used to take like Coke or sweeties during the day, like E during the day, and then take Valium at night to fucking go to sleep. That was like oh, this is fine. This is just fucking that kind of thing. It's like a coffee and a Horlicks. What's the problem? And that's literally so in order to become this guy, like, I had to go through this real manic transition. It feels to me like I didn't choose to do this. It's just kind of like I'm walking towards something that's happened to me. And that the reason I'm saying any of this is that every single one of us, we're all human. There's nothing unique about me except my consequential output. The thing that I produce is the unique thing, but everything else, the formula for making this unique thing, the tragedy, the successes, the difficulties, the triumphs, you know, the social pressure, all the other periphery emotional circumstances are not unique to me. It's the same template for everybody, and that's what's exciting, and that's what takes me back to that childlike wonder, is because the thing that you have to produce, like, your masterwork is yet to arrive. This is the real thing. It's yet to show up. How fucking exciting is that, man? It's yet to show up, and everything that you're going through at the moment, all the difficulties, the traumas, the tragedies, the fine-tuning your craft, the podcast and the writings and that kind of thing, is like, regardless if we're conscious of it or not, that's all the key ingredients required to your craft, getting your master craft coming closer and closer. And I think that's what's so important about understanding that. It's like, and I think that's the other thing as well about the whole nature of defining yourself, is that it's just it's probably the most beautiful thing you can stumble across as a sensation. Like when you're, when it's almost, and that's one of the reasons why there's a part of me that was, like I said before, like it was like 9 weeks and not consuming anything, no cannabis. It was like just really fucking clean lifestyle essentially. And there's almost like because obviously, as we said before, there's fleeting sensations of emotion over the course of weeks and months. So it's not a standstill emotion, but the feeling of euphoria and excitement towards the possibility in life is almost indescribable, as a consequence of like, right, I'm going to focus all my energy on this one thing. And the thing I'll emphasize is it could be fucking knitting cardigans, and you're like passionate to fuck, and like, I'm going to be the best knitting cardigan guy. Yeah. It could be anything. And that's why that's all. It's just that when I think about yourself in the context of the UK, in the context of an individual pursuing a craft and that kind of thing, it's like, you should have way more confidence in your position than you do. Is it the way you come across? Like, you should be like fucking, like, you're right at the front, man. And it's just, you know, it'd just be fascinating to see what it is that you're here to leave on the world's mark. Like, your fingerprint is still yet to be left. We're kind of forming it individually, but each one of us are here to leave something that somebody else is going to use as evidence that they can also do something, you know? And I think that's just a really exciting fucking thing.
Yeah, you humble me, honestly. Some days I agree with you. Some days I really struggle.
That's what interestingly. So that's where the to-do right now, right next to me, man, I've got my fucking to-do list right next to me, and this is one of the things I put in the productive path book, and I'll definitely send it down. Exactly, Simpa. So you've got the same thing. You just have to believe it, man. There's a weird thing. I said this to my son the other day. I totally butchered the study, and I'll probably butcher it now. But I was like, there's that thing about the power of belief, where there was like, it's so crucial to be like, nah, I am this guy, and that's where the psychological gymnastics comes in, because you've got to believe that you're somebody that's in a position that they're going to leave something of significance, and you've got to believe that whilst also maintaining a humble and non-arrogant perspective that you're just grateful to be given the opportunity to do that. And that's what's important. It's like, it's like being somebody that's like, I'm here to do something special. With like, that's confidence. You're not allowed to have arrogance on top of it, or the universe will squash you, man. So what you've got to be is, you've got to have confidence that you can do it, belief that you have been selected by something greater than you to contribute it, because it wouldn't have arrived without you, and also being humble that it's like, I'm just grateful that I've been given this opportunity. And the whole basis of belief, the importance of that was kind of highlighted for this study that I did on Fair Days. It was on rats, but nevertheless. And what it was, I think they had something like 10 rats in these containers that were all full of water, and rats can swim for something like 90 minutes before they reach exhaustion, and then they'll die. So what they did was that with some of the rats, they gave little moments of like a wee lifeline. So some of the rats never got this little fucking, they were part of this control group where they got given like a lifeline. So they got taken out of the water for like 10 seconds and then put back in. And then for the rats that believed that they were going to be taken out, they were able to swim longer than 90 minutes. So these tests, obviously, I'm butchering the fucking study, but the importance of it's still evident, hopefully, is just that the nature of belief, just believing something's arriving on your doorstep, just believing. And it's not and the other thing to remember, it's not an ignorant belief. It's not this false hope, like, oh, blah, blah. You go based on the likelihood of it arriving as a consequence of adopting specific daily characteristics, which increase the probability of that thing arriving for you. And this is what's important about it. There's a recipe for manifesting the masterwork that we're all here to produce. And the recipe is daily repetition of the craft, a fine-tuning of your habits towards something sustainable and progressive, maintaining a visual process that of the end guy, of the characteristics that they hold, the person that you would be, maintaining that visual process, and then understanding that the daily repetition of that is going to be continuously assaulted by the difficulty of life. And now when you understand that circumstance, the things that you're talking about before, of some days you believe it and some days you don't, they become, I think we said before, it's like you knew those days were arriving. Like, oh yeah, fucking today's the day that the 40-foot waves are here, everybody. And that one of the things I actually said to some guy at work, because again, man, I'm fucking manic with this shit. I said to some guy at work about the fact that I was like, you should see difficulty as a stranger sitting next to you, but it's a shadow, ironically enough, or whatever enough. But I was like, there's a shadow person sitting next to you, right, throughout life, continuously, and that shadow person's here to like hit the fucking pencil at your hand, or to make sure that your laptop fucking crashes, or to make sure that there's been a fucking difficult person chapping the door that day, so it's got in the way. So there's a shadow guy that lives next to you every day. Some days he'll not even do anything. Some days you're about to get on with your stuff. But this guy lives next to you every day. So when that difficulty does arrive, you just acknowledge it, like, oh, how fucking knew you were here anyway, man. Like this isn't a surprise. There is no like suppression of my productivity today as a consequence of this person showing up, because I knew you were going to be here, man. And on the days he doesn't show up, you just get this fucking still peacefulness, like, oh, right, quality, today's one of those days, so I better really maximize today. I better make sure, and instead of fucking, like, even something as small as that, on the days that are silent, the days that you can sense, because the more and more you apply a conscious analysis to maintaining positive habits every day, the more and more you can sense the days that are going to be turbulent and the ones that are going to be relatively peaceful. And on those peaceful days, that's when you kind of refrain from, like, well, I need to go to the shop and get milk. I've got enough to do me today. You just stay in the house that day. You don't go to the shop, because that small trip to the shop can be 2 hours of your time, or back and forth, these kind of things. And that's all this is just that there's a really fascinating thing accessible to all of us. And it shows up in the form of a craft, a creative endeavor, something that wasn't here before you, but will be here after you. And that's what I truly believe. Like, one of the questions I've got here, man, actually was, what is the meaning of life, / what is the purpose of life? And I think those things can be interchanged, you know, and like kind of transferred over. But I truly do believe that the nature of the capacity for humans to create is as essential to fucking nature. And the same, I see the somebody producing music or some form of creative craft, that's the same creative energy that makes a seed transfer into the tallest oak. That's the same thing. That's what I think separates humans. It's truly magical. It's a divine circumstance that I have no idea how to describe it in the best form, but I do see, like, sitting there, and because that's the whole point. It takes us to, where does ideas come from then? Because what it is you're channeling, this creative output, has been channeled from something. There's an idea arrived in your head. You didn't think of it before, but here it is. It showed up, and then you're going to apply this to the fucking world through your creative craft, and then the world's going to absorb this thing, and the world's going to be changed in a particular direction as a consequence of you doing this thing through the action. And that is the same spirit that makes a fucking small seedling turn into the fucking biggest tree. And when I think about it in that context, it's our responsibility, when we acknowledge what our craft is, to make sure that we get the maximum from it. Because then it's like that thing where it's like, if somebody gave you 100 quid, but you're like, nah, I'll just spend a quid of this, and so somebody next to you starving, they've not been given the craft, they've not been given the 100 quid, and you're like, nah, I'm not bothered, I'll not even share the knowledge, I'll not share it. It's like, well, you shouldn't have been given it. This person doesn't deserve the ability to be creative. And I think that's all this is. Apologies for the rambles, man, but it's like, when I think about your own circumstance, I mean, the Simpa Life t-shirts on your chest, the reality of it, that's what I mean, fucking get them where the mouse stops last. But the reality is, your masterwork is still yet to be produced. The world is still to receive it. And what's so interesting is there's more than one. We do more than one masterwork. Because, let's say, just to rattle in my fucking manic rant here, is that by the time the movie's done, one of the things that keep popping to mind is that there's an emotional sensations towards any craft, and you know this fine well. When you're writing work, when you're going, right, I'm going to produce this piece of work over a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there's an emotional roller coaster which is present at the process each time. So if you do, every single blog I'm going to do is 3 weeks, or a month, just say a month. Every blog I write is going to take a month. You'll notice a template of emotional fucking sensation over the course of each month that will arrive at the same time every time. And what I've noticed is, because I've never done something like this, I've never done a movie before, there's a feeling inside of me that the moment I'm finished producing it, obviously I'll have to market it and get it out in a way that's going to complement the work that's been put in. But I'm immediately going to have to try and do something that ups it. And it's not a case where it's like oh, you're just, there's not a negative in that. That's just the natural process of things. You know, you're never going to go to the gym, get in strong shape, and then like, I'll wait for it to go back. No, you're always developing on like callus. You're always developing on tendons and muscles continuously. You know, and that same thing applies to the craft as well. So, yeah, and that's all it is, man. When I think about your situation, I genuinely have excitement for you, because it's like what's arriving is just that it's like an unlimited fountain of potential, that the moment you realize how important your influence is, the moment you'll really be able to get a fucking like, nah, man, I better get like 5 in the morning isn't going to be early all of a sudden. You're going to be going to bed at 10. I literally find myself like at 9:30 quality. I'm going to be really energized tomorrow. At 9:30, it's like, bro, what the fuck? Just as and the whole point is, all of this is just so that I can maximize my creative output, because it's like that thing where by the time you get to like 80, the amount of effort you put in will determine how much is kind of filled in your suitcase. You know, if you're 80 years old and you're leaving the planet, how much did you fill in there? And if just say the universe or God or whatever stand looking at you going, right, I gave you the option, I gave you the availability of 100 books, because you didn't put in the effort, you did 1. What the fuck, mate? And it's the same thing. From my side, it's like if somebody's like, right, I'll give you like your end days, you're standing there talking to fucking God, the universe, whatever people prefer to hear it. And they're literally saying to you, like to me personally, I gave you the opportunity to do 4 movies. Why did you just do 1? And I'm like, fuck, but that 1 movie seemed like such a success, or blah, blah. No. I gave you the opportunity to do 4, but you didn't put in enough effort, so none of that arrived. What the fuck? And it's that concept, because that's true. Take away the God element. There is going to come a time where it's our last day. There is going to come a moment where you're looking back and going, how much could have I have done? You know what I mean? And it's that's what makes me excited, that it's like, it's not it's not a wasted life. It's the maximum you can get from life, you know?
Life's already here and it's already going to happen. You're going to die regardless. Whether you choose your actions, you're going to act. There's going to be consequences. There's going to be consequences either way, but you can choose how to plot and plan them, as you say. And yeah, that's what motivates me. And that's the thing that got me as a kid, was stood as myself over my own deathbed, judging myself. And I feel that it's something that I learned through conversations with my grandmother when she was dying. And we would sit sometimes and talk for like 12, 13 hours. And just sit there and just talk about life and everything and just trying to get an understanding of it. And she really helped me understand that the older you get, the more content you get if you've done it right. If you do it wrong, there's a bitterness. Again, it's those 2 wolves. And you've got to challenge that bitterness, and you've got to have that opportunity. You know, every time you said, oh, I wish I'd, do the fucking thing. Do it now. Try it now. If you actually really want the thing, it's that proverb of, you know, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, and that's how we've got to sort of deal with life. And I think that you made an interesting point of the energetic manifestation of life, that which drives the seedling to a tree, that which drives birth cycles, the manifests and connects mycelium and fucking mold, viruses, etc., bacteria. To me, the narrative that makes closest sense to my head is almost that is a life force almost in and of itself, that all things are this one thing, in the same way I said that if I was you, raised you, acted you, we'd do the same thing. I think that's everything. Anything that is animate, that is living, is sharing of this thing. And it's everything is evolving toward this point, or at least this is the start of that, what everything else was for us to use our guardianship, our consciousness, to be able to go, oh, okay, how can we protect life? How can we ensure the continuation of certain things and recognize our own hubris to not fuck with other things? But I think it feels like it's life trying to get to other planets. I think that's why we're evolving the technologies, and people are driven in the ways that they are, in such a, what almost feels like a doomsday cult of us. Do we have to get off the rock? I think that's life as the Earth moves out of the Goldilocks zone. Obviously, this is over billions of years, and it's just the life works on these sort of scales. Yeah, you know, if you listen to the panspermia concept, the idea that life came from Mars, from an asteroid, and the shit that got blown into fucking space, and all those, there's a multitude of different concepts of it. One is there's an asteroid, one is there's debris from Mars, etc., because that used to be further into the Goldilocks zone. And so there's all these different sort of conceptual ideas, and to me that's what it feels like. It's life is in the Jeff Goldblum way. It'll find a way, it'll find its way through, and I think that's what's happening. We're just the latest iteration and the first, arguably, in Homo sapiens or Homo erectus, or whichever version we want to go back to, have that consciousness, that ability to go, oh, we can do things, and as you say, master things. And I think, as I said before, everyone that masters their craft truly to their own ability for the betterment of others, or rather, even if not truly mastering it, will be for the betterment of others. I'm not talking about billionaires that screw a system and I'm rich and I'm successful. That's not success. That's antithetical to success. You've denied tens of millions of people the opportunity to participate in a system so that you can have an extra zero and have a pissing contest with 12 of the people on the fucking planet. That is not success. Success is raising your family, it's serving your community, it's being a good human, it's recognizing your potential for violence, your potential for destruction, your potential for villainy, and dealing with it. It's in with all of us, and we see this all the time. People are in that projecting thing, going, oh, well, that person's evil. No, there's something in you that bugs you that you can't assess, so you put this label on as a way of, oh, thank God, he's one of the bad ones. I had a friend in my teens, and he's raised by a priest, and he said to me once, in seriousness, he believes that a quarter of people on the planet are evil. And it blew my mind, and then it got me thinking of other religious individuals and people that truly believe in the evil concept. So therefore, anyone that they deem as good that day, they're the good ones. God likes them. And then they can justify all the ills and terrible things of the world without ever having to be critical of it. That's God's will. They're the evil ones. You were smited because you did something bad. I don't know what the bad thing you did is, so I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah.
And I think that is manifesting in society, like you said, of the disconnect. And this is why we have to be critical, again, of ourselves continually, not just, oh, I wish I'd done this in my youth. It's prepare for a better death. There's a certain point I'm hitting, like I'm 35. Do you know what I mean? This year. So I'm approaching that point where I'm already thinking of, I'm preparing for the best next part of my life that I can have. So I want to physically get in better shape, assess my diet, look at supplements and vitamins and things like that. Assess the people I've got in my life, the stresses I have in my life, exactly that the direction that I want it to go in. And without that end point, we're just free floating. And it's the Malcolm X thing. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah. And I think that's where we're at, is that people are just waiting to be told what to do. And I know we're sort of running out of time here, but my final point on it is just that something you mentioned before of this fear of controlling human behavior. I think we've passed control. We're now in programmed behavior. They can click some buttons in a couple of fucking rooms in Twitter and Facebook and whatever else on the whim of the FBI or whatever, and the world news changes. The narrative changes overnight. It's the programming. They're not just manipulating and propagandizing us anymore through these actions. When we then hear a thing and go to search it, they've already smothered it. Google has pushed it up. YouTube's pushed it up. So it's all the mainstream guys repeating exactly the same soundbite. Once you hear it 20 times, you hear the one dissenter and you're like, I don't know. All these guys, they can't be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're just stuck in this system of disbelief and of the just disenfranchisement,
It's, we've pretty much covered most of the shit we were talking about, to be honest, that I've got written down here. One of them, obviously, is like penultimate dream for a Simpa Life podcast. I was like cannabis landscape evolution, barriers for cannabis, lots of interviews. Yeah, one of the things that was interesting as well, because it sounds like you do it anyway, but I was like, on the days that you like lose an interview, you should input some form of like, oh, I've lost that, so I have to do this, like a piece of writing, like you've got to do that day. So it's like 100%. That's kind of like
some work.
It's like there's a knee-jerk response. So it's like, because one of the things the reason I say that is because, again, it's that relative template. So when I was doing the animation at the beginning, sometimes it'd be like the computer would fuck up, or my son had to use the computer. So the thing I had lined up that day, or an interview, the thing I had lined up that day, I was like, oh, I can't do that on the computer. So I would then draw. So I knew that I was like, well, if I'm not, I'll be drawing the next episode, and it kept the engine burning. So I mean, like putting in like a fucking like a journal thing or something like that, something that's essentially, that's all I think is kind of cool about it, is like upping what would be the next stage of development if you're to up what you're doing right now, like adding more editing to your fucking podcasts, or like working towards a book, because inevitably the thing you'd up with, you'd still be able to maintain the engine now. So if you're writing towards a book, you'd still be doing podcast. If you're like upping the podcast editing, you would then be writing towards something,
Yeah, I mean, I'm potentially moving in the next sort of 10 months. I'm trying to sort of figure that one out at the minute, but yeah, I'd like to sort of start with a book. I'm kind of stuck on the medical con series. Right. So I've been writing script 3, 4, and 5 for a while. Script 3 is like nearly 7,000 words, and I don't. The problem is, if I can write it, I think, oh, what about this? And what about that? And it just keeps getting bigger, because I've got to then reference the thing that I've referenced and try to make sure that the narrative makes sense. I'm trying also to include like the hyperlinks with all of this one to be able to prove all of my points, to, encourage conversation, but not people just flat out saying you're wrong, sort of thing.
I think it's like, sorry, man. So could you not do that then? Because make it so that, because you're doing the medical thing. So when you're researching for each medical video, the research you're doing, that's your book. And could you not make it so that it's like, so all the information you've got down there, you could easily put that into a book easily, and there'll be loads of people that, and then if you applied once you've done the book, they'll just fire the link over, like you doing like a fucking video of like, hey, so if you like the information in this, buy this book, it's blah, blah, blah on Amazon, like at the end of your video. So I mean, like each 7,000 words is the same, like I did 7,000 words for the productive path. Like that was you'll see when I send it down, man, if you're, like, you don't need to give me your address, by the way, just so you can get it. Because like, it's perfect for you, man. It's perfect. Like, it's really basic. Each chapter's like 2 pages, 3 pages. It's almost like 3 or 4 paragraphs and that's it. But the nature of it's all about, there's 3 concepts in it, and it's developing a craft, like obviously walking down your productive path, and then the final stage of that, adding those 2 together, is you then reach a life of self-sustainability as a consequence of that. And that's the craft, is what it is you're doing, your writing or your podcast creation. The productive path is the formula of to-do lists for each day, week, and month. That's your productive path. And on the productive path, you'll have things like friends falling to the side, or like other things that will be socially difficult or emotionally difficult. That's on your productive path. And then it's like the difficulty of doing the work. Turning back to that thing I mentioned before about the shadow guy, of the inhibitor towards your craft. Stephen Pressfield, he's the best guy for this. He wrote a book, The Art of War. No, The War on Art. That was it, The War on Art. And he refers to the shadow person I was talking about earlier as resistance. So resistance is always there to make you go, don't do this thing. And again, I'm not going to because I'll talk about it for days. Just kind of want to hear what you're thinking on it, essentially. But that's all I was meaning, was when, as a consequence of really hype, like I can't emphasize enough, Simpa man, like I've went into a state of hyper concentration, sensitivity towards the generic template of developing your craft. And what I see with the generic template, moving from like the single fucking black and white to then like cartoons, single fucking A4 sheets of cartoons, then all the way through to the point where this movie is like once you see it, you'll know what I mean. And that's all I mean, is so I'm, and that template, that generic template is similar for everybody. So when you're talking about your thing, my mind's constantly in this like try to find your template, and that's what it sounds like to me. So when you're doing you better do both. You better make the 7,000 words. That's all your footnotes and all your knowledge. And then when you do the video, then just for each 7,000 each video, that's your chapter. That's your chapter. Just take the information, and your chapter is fucking like between 4 and like between 3 and 6,000. So essentially that's 7,000 words. So essentially that's 7,000 words that you did for the episode. All you need to do is hyper proofread it, and that's your chapter. You know what I mean? And then you've got a book inside of 4 months. You know, and that'll be the beginning for you. Then get the feel for the template of creating books, and before you know it, man, you're being fucking referenced on the BBC because you've created something. Do you know what I mean? And I say that because that's the mainstream form of success. If you're able to get them talking about it, then that's what I mean. That's the whole point I said that. But genuinely, man, that's what I find kind of interesting, is just that very often that whole I've not got time because I'm doing this thing is like, if you just tweaked it slightly, the thing that you've not got time doing is actually the thing that's going to produce towards the thing you're supposed to be doing. And that's 7,000 words. That's substantial, man. That's substantial.
Well, with the others as well, it's closer to 15, I think, with the other ones that I'd already done, and the ones that I'm working on. I painted myself into a corner. I thought I could do the work week by week.
Yeah.
And then things changed with the situation. And then I was like, actually, I'll give this a fair run. I've run a couple of clinics now. I've got a lot more insider information. A lot of things that I do want to reveal in sort of the last episode of it. But I want to basically just get that done, and then learn more of the craft of editing, of doing short form videos, so that I can work on those projects with no timeline and without getting stuck in that guilt of I should have finished this already. Do you know what I mean? And then it just became kind of a project stuck in the ether while everything else sort of continued. But yeah, I've got a few concepts of things that I'd quite like to do. And my issue is with some of it is trying to figure out how to narrowly break it down, because a lot of the work, everything is intersectional. So I'll go, I'm just going to stick in this remit, and then go, but in order for them, I feel like in order for the people reading it to understand it, I need to reference this, and then in order for them to understand, and it just builds. And I always struggle to kind of keep the thing and trust the reader. No offense to anyone that reads my work or anybody in general, it's more of a confidence thing for me that they're going to be able to understand me, that they're going to actually get what it is that I'm trying to articulate to them.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that, and I think that's what comes hand in hand in the whole basis of fine tuning the craft. Inevitably, as you mentioned a second ago there, because it's the same thing when I'm producing animations or this bit and this bit. It's kind of like attempting to figure out, because one of the things I've noticed, again, that's what comes down to the thing we said before. You're the audience. If you can understand it, the audience that you're wanting to read it will understand it. And I think sending it out, because the other thing that pops to mind as well is the network that you have, and when it comes to events and stuff like that, like you are in like prime position for creating a purchasable piece of cannabis work that you could market. You don't need a fucking agent. You better go through, all these people that are doing these events, man. You better just show up, and you'll be like, people would more than happy help you out in that situation, because of the fact, and that's all it takes is just like that thing you're describing. about the making sure that they can understand the work. It will happen. It will arrive. It's that whole thing of like that I said before. You just need to start the first one, like, and genuinely, and that's what it sounds. What one of the things I did in the periphery, in the productive path book, and that's one of the things that's so exciting. That's why I find that's why I come across so manic about this, man, because it's genuinely. I don't know anything that's more exciting than finding this in people, right? But the thing that was for you, the thing that the fingerprint that you're here to leave on planet Earth was always in your periphery. It was like fucking there your entire life. And that's one of the things, I remember the last conversation, because I was thinking about this. The last conversation we were talking about the fact that your vocation expectation study came up as an author or something when you were at school. Is that right? When you did exactly.
Yeah.
And that was like, you're like, fuck that shit at that time. So the universe, it was in your periphery the whole time. So take that. That was when you were at high school. So take that, flip over to my side. I'd had no idea what I was doing. On my exam day, because I hadn't studied and my fucking rector came and picked me up, I sat and drew a big cartoon with a joint on the front page. Like, at the same time as I drew that cartoon, thinking, fuck this shit, and leaving school, I don't know what I'm going to do, fuck this shit. Like, I had no idea. The universe was like, mate, just behave yourself, you'll be fine, and this is what you're going to do. And so that's the same.
Yeah.
So that's similar for both of our situations. So what does that tell us? That tells us that there's a generic formula for all of us reaching who we are supposed to be. It was in your periphery the whole time. And this applies to everybody listening to this as well. There's something in your periphery that's fucking screaming out for you to be engaged in. And there's a consequence, and that's what takes us back to that thing where you said doing it for other people. Because that's what the religious texts are telling us. That's what Jesus sacrificed for everybody else. The reason why you're here to produce your craft is actually not for you. It's actually not for you. It's for somebody else to then produce theirs, and then and as a consequence of them doing that, and then that's the geometric repetition that we're talking about before. On a societal basis, somebody producing one thing, which leads to potentially 5,000 people producing their thing over a specific time period. That's no longer subjective or individual. That seems to be that there's a collective movement present, which is channeling itself for each one of us, and it's represented on the way society shifts. You know what I mean? And that's why I find it so fascinating, because it's like you're touching on the pulse of something greater than what it's like divine. There's something that you're touching on there.
It's like a resonance.
Yeah.
There's something. So in the sense that a sound frequency, and then everything that's in the vicinity being attuned to that frequency, it increases, would move that sound.
Yeah.
And I think in the waveform, I think that's a good way to kind of visualize what is happening here. In the same way that if you want to look at, again, the ideals of the idea of sort of Jesus and the anointing oils and cannabism and all of that kind of concept of, I am linked to the heritage of that, if that was indeed to be true and real, in the same way that I am linked to whatever comes of cannabis in 1,000 years of now. We all, within some way, are, I don't want to say cogs in the machine, because it's not necessarily meant to come across in that way. It's that if you perfect your craft, you will harmonize with that resonance of the universe, and you'll be rewarded through it, through a sense of achievement, a sense of accomplishment, of also contentment, deep contentment. That is the thing that I find in this space, is whenever I hear somebody, even if it's months, years after the fact that I've used a certain phraseology, or I've brought a common word into a lexicon, and I'm hearing it with people that I don't necessarily think would engage with my content, but they're literally using word for word a sentence or a phrase or something that I've put out into either a podcast or a blog or an article somewhere, or even just in conversations with other people in the sphere. So I can see that resonance in some ways.
Yeah. Do you know what that tells me then? Because that's what the whole point is. It's like, at what point does the craft that you're engaged in and the fingerprint that you're leaving, what relationship does that have to the external other than a physical representation of it? And what that tells you is that the individual that engages in something meaningful with high integrity, the universe has a reciprocal relationship with that person. That's what it seems to me, that there's a reciprocity that lives between the engagement of the craft and a relative proportionate response as a consequence of the thing you're making. And I think that's what's so important, is that if you make something over the course of like a day, spending a day, the reward or the reciprocity you're given will be proportionate to that day's worth of work. And I think that's why when you see individuals that have then made their entire lifespan dedicated to a craft, Leonardo da Vinci, or individuals that are like, I'm going to spend 70 years working on this, 50 years working on this. At last, the reciprocity in proportion to that is it lasts millennia in human society. You're looking at somebody's work 500-600 years later, still with the same level of awe as a consequence of the effort that was put in when they were engaging in their craft. And I think that's what's so powerful about when you look into the breadcrumbs that have been left by these people, you're really, when you're engaging in your craft and you're engaging in something that's greater than yourself or even humanity in itself, there's something majestic about it. You see something different. You see something that you see the world differently, but there's something else. It's kind of like there's that whole I don't know if it's maybe Alice in Wonderland or something like that. It's like peeking behind the curtain, where there's kind of like you've got real life and then they move the curtain back and there's this other thing behind real life. And it's the other thing that's behind real life is like, fucking hell, man. It's captivating to say the least, but it's also, you know, it's also wondrous and exciting because peeking behind the curtain, like we can all peek behind the curtain, but the whole point is you've got to engage with specific action and be willing to sacrifice the necessary factors, variables that are going to be need to be sacrificed in order to be able to look behind that. Because I think what's important is you can't look behind the curtain with like as a poor quality person. I think that's a kind of like a what is it, a precursor to that. I think you've got to kind of, and that's what the whole basis of like the fine tuning your personality is.
I think it's
that's what like alchemy is. When I picture the poor quality metals, the rust, you've got to get rid of the rust in order to be able to make the gold. You can't make the gold of life with it being better, you know.
Yeah, I think when you sort of ascribe that to humans, that it's not necessarily poor quality in that sense. I would say that it's capability. Can you see what is beyond the curtain? Can you comprehend the curtain? Yeah. And I think that is the problem, is that I think people that are blinded by the pink elephant in the room can't help but good the elephant, and the others that can't see it, they're not necessarily capable. It's not a failure, it's not a fault, it's probability, it's math. Only so many can, so therefore the others are the remainder. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean that to say that we're anyone that's superior or whatever else. It's just in your season, as you described it, in this era, this moment within your life, your senses are attuned in a way, and your consciousness is aligned in a way that you can perceive these things. And if you can be analytical of it. And I think the worrying thing, and the thing that I'm struggling with ongoing depression of my life, lifelong depression, is because of my aptitude and my awareness. I'm depressed because I know what life is, not life, this manifesting inside of us, the dance of reproduction and of seasons and the weather and fucking the movement of the tides. That's not what I mean. Like these concrete cages, the construct that humans have made for ourselves. That I think is the issue. And I think that, I'm not saying we evolve beyond that and go live in the woods or whatever. That's not what I'm sort of saying. But we have to harmonize. And so yeah, I think the more that we can get ourselves closer to that best version of ourselves, in some way along that journey, you reconnect with nature. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've got like 50 houseplants. Do you know what I mean? I spend a lot of time in the woods. I'm always like grounding. I love to spend time on beaches and in nature and camping, wild camping. And that all started with a slow appreciation from cannabis, from understanding a cannabis plant, growing a cannabis plant and being like, that does this. And I do this, and in this relationship, and it gives me this as the reward. And just, yeah, really viscerally reminds you of that symbiosis that we have, you know, with the natural world around us.
I would really, it's like when I think about my relationship with cannabis, it's very complex. Like when I think about it, there's been times when it's been a compliment to my life, and other times it's totally fucking hindered it. And I think that's why, like I said earlier, I'm going to do that video in the future of like a month with cannabis versus a month without. I might do 5 weeks and 5 weeks maybe. It'll be funny, 5 weeks with, and then it'll be like 2 weeks without. But it's like something like that. But because that's what, when I think about it, I'm the same. It's like I think about what impact does cannabis have on my life. And so creativity. So as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that I've recently it was like 9 weeks, 10 weeks without consuming anything. And in that time period, I'm dealing with this like position of like self-analysis and like what impacts have on my life and all these different things. And yeah, it's interesting. There's actually a book that I'm going to do. I'm going to throw it in. It's going to be partly illustrated. And that's it's going to be called Getting Out of the Weeds. And essentially it's going to be documenting the sensations and expectations for individuals that are kind of finished with their relationship with cannabis, that they've had it and they're no longer interested in it and that kind of thing, because there is a difficulty, there is a challenge, and it's interesting. So that was a kind of side point. But one of the things I noticed the most about the consumption was that, so once I got to week 4, like there's a consistency. So I was the same. I felt fucking depressed and low and all that kind of shit. And one of the things I noticed was that once I removed cannabis from my life, that emotional instability became stable. I didn't have feelings of like, so the same perspectives of like frustrations towards working and how contributing towards a society that's fundamentally robbing you from the top down, and all these different other reasons for nihilism became less as a consequence of kind of removing cannabis from my life at that moment, right? So that was at week 4 or week 5. And by the time we got to week 8 or 9, I kind of felt cold. I kind of felt like I became hardened to things that I'd ordinarily be kind of soft towards. And it felt like there's a part of my personality that was, and it's interesting because there's a study I'm going to put in that, the Getting Out of the Weeds book, and it's about how the fact that cannabinoids connect to specific regions of the brain, which are largely influential towards the formation of personality. And that's so cannabinoids have this interactive effect with parts of the brain that are related to how you are as a person. And so one of the, and with this information, this knowledge, I'm walking forward and being like how am I feeling today? It's week 5, week 6, week 7. You'll notice I never stopped counting how many weeks. But it's like so social experiment, people, social experiment. So that's all it was. So by the time I got to week 8, week 9, I found myself I was kind of just a bit like meh. Like kind of just, it felt colder. And one of the other things I found, I was still coming up with ideas. I was still doing parts of the movie and still thinking, and in that moment, in those moments of not consuming cannabis, the creative side of me was still present. It was still like, I'm coming up with ideas and this, this, and this. But one of the things I noticed, and this was really interesting, on the day that I was like, fuck it, and I sparked a joint, the level of, and this takes me, I'll draw it in a minute, the level of creative ideas that flew through my fucking brain seconds after consuming that, like 2, because that's the whole point as well. Level of consumption is biphasic, as you know. Level of consumption is relative to how much you're going to optimize cannabis effects. So if you have a couple of draws and get busy doing some form of work, then it's going to benefit you. If you have fucking 4 joints, then try and do something. You're not going to, it's about dosage. And so what I did was, when I hadn't consumed for like 9 weeks, obviously 10 weeks, so I had like 2 draws of just a pure green joint, and then stubbed it out. And that one of the things I noticed, that this is how I described it at the moment in my head, when I was like, the availability of ideas before consuming cannabis was kind of like sitting at the side of a fucking lock or something like that, or a fucking lake, and you're like, you've got a fishing rod, and the lake is your pool of ideas, and you're throwing the fucking fishing rod in, and you're hoping to catch a fucking idea. That's what it felt like. When after 2 draws of a joint, it felt like I was sitting at the side of a fucking river and the fish were jumping out of the water. That's what it felt like. I was just, boom, there's one, to the point where I wrote down on a sheet of paper all these like to-do list thing. I was like, fucking hell, that's evidence. And then the other thing that the people should be aware of as well, that are unfamiliar with this, is that cannabis is known through like academic studies and these kind of things to increase cerebral blood flow to your frontal lobe. And that's largely where creativity lives. And so cannabis is biologically increasing the availability for blood to go to a region where you can become more creative in specific doses. And this is the thing that I'll bring it to, is just the whole point is the past year, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. I mean, since I've started consuming cannabis, I think it's also because of society and how they talk about it, I find myself in a constant interaction of what purpose does it serve? Is this good for me? It's been told it's bad for me, and but it feels like it's good for me. And that dialogue, that fucking back and forth since being a teenager of like being told it's bad for you, but having a subjective feeling that differed from that opinion, leads to this internal analysis that's been like 20 fucking years, man. Almost. Holy shit, 19, 20. Fucking, I was like 13 or something like that. So almost 20 years. And that's what it's got to. What I've drawn it to, for me personally, cannabis is a tool. But with people listening to this going, you're a fucking tool. But like cannabis is like a utility. It's like a tool, and how you use it will determine how effective you can engage with that tool or utility. And that's how I felt about it. And because of the fact that it's so comfortable, it's so aligning, like in the same dynamic as caffeine, it's just less harmful. It's so aligning with your physiology, your biology, your psychology, that it makes it difficult. And with such relative fucking, there's all essentially non-existent side effects in my own use of it. I know there's other individuals that have consumed it and had a psychotic episode. This is real, but I've not had any of that experience. What I've found is that because it's so subtle, it makes it very easy to abuse. Cannabis is a very subtle substance that it's very easy to be abused as a consequence of the harms being so fucking non-existent. And that's why my whole aim, and it seems to be the older I get, the less I'm consuming, is my whole aim is to optimize creative output. And that's what it is. And I'm aware people listening to this, because it's going to be included in the Getting Out of the Weeds book, there were individuals who medically cannot consume a small amount. That's a real thing. The way individuals that require large doses of cannabinoids. So that's I'm aware of that. That's the periphery. I'm talking about the general consumption of people that consume it for the feeling.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting thing to explore, and something you definitely put in the book. I struggle with that same internalized narrative because the more weed I consume, typically, well, mainly of my own organic grown, the more normal I feel. The slower my brain works to a point of functionality that I can actually articulate and finish a sentence. In sobriety, I don't feel in control of myself. I don't feel I'm sat in the seat of my consciousness choosing my actions. I become incredibly reactive and driven by a lot of the still lingering and will forever be eternally lingering anger and frustration of my youth. You know, the memories of a very painful childhood never go away. You know, the what ifs of a better childhood never go away. You know, even things of that have been absent of a parent. You know, that's a loss to the potential of one's life. You know what I mean? What could have been. And so yeah, with cannabis, I still struggle with that every now and then. I'll hang around people and I'll smoke up with them, and I'll literally just be like, oh no, and normal and just enjoying, and people are asleep and they're dead around me. These are long-term smokers and that, and it's and then I have that internal thing about, is there something wrong? And it's like, but I have no consequences. Not only do I have no consequences, I have nothing but benefits. So I don't know whether it is the potential of the autism diagnosis or whatever it is. That there is something that, yeah, I like to try tolerance breaks and like to sort of reduce and whatever, but it becomes to a point where it's symptomatic of withdrawal or any of those things. It's neurological problems. It's an extreme lack of focus. It's intrusive thoughts. It's dysregulation.
What's also really relevant, and that's what's so brilliant about this conversation, Simpa, is that it's like the level of variables that determine how an individual responds to cannabis are in the same number as molecules in the plant. So it's like you're in a situation where it's like there'll be one individual in this circumstance, or any situation, when they're talking about the fact that somebody will be talking about how, oh, I had a fucking schizophrenic breakdown as a consequence of smoking cannabis, and there's somebody else going, it's actually saved my life and I can be functioning as a consequence of it. In order to determine the effectiveness based on the person, you really have to have this extremely in-depth biochemical profile of each person. And not only that, the biochemical profile of the cannabinoid, the phytochemical present.
There's something I don't know what I was going to try to say. There's something that exists as a consequence of how society views that thing as well. So take diamorphine on the street, it's heroin, and it's this dirty drug user. Your grand's just broke her hip in 3 places. It's medicine fucking that's stopping her, you know, having real serious consequence and living in the pain of this. And it's the same is true of cannabis. It took me a long time one of the reasons I'm so learned on cannabis, I'm so informed about the plant and the culture and the history, is to constantly, because I'm having this battle with myself. Is this the right thing I should be doing for myself? Is this the path I'm on? You know, like, and so I'm just trying to justify myself. But there was that sort of tipping point of then being, again, Principal Skinner. No, it's the professionals that are wrong.
I love that so much.
Because I've lived with myself. I've known myself. I have been a horrible person as a child. I was violent and vicious. Like under 10, I was inconsolable because of what was done to me. I couldn't be alone with people. I couldn't trust people. I couldn't focus. I couldn't listen. I couldn't be present. I was just dangerous to myself and others because of all the shit that had already happened. It took me a long time to reconcile with that with myself. And I became a pacifist. You know, I spent a lot of time really looking into the impulses to my anger, to trying to manage this professionally, personally. It's taken me a long time. I think that's why I'm still so passionate when I speak in the podcast, when I talk to people, is that's a drip of that vessel emptying over time. It's same with that MDMA and sharing the trauma. It's the same thing. I've got to get this sense of rage and injustice and aggression out, because I believe that the world that I am fighting for, if manifest, would negate my youth. Do you know what I mean? There's a saying that be the adult that you needed as a child. that's what I feel that I'm doing. That's who I see myself as. To answer your earlier question, is I'm trying to be the strong, reasonable, approachable person, whether it be for my nephews and niece, for the people in my community, for anybody. You know, people confide in me. I know all sorts of shit that could harm a lot of companies and harm a lot of things, but I've learned to be smart. I've learned to hold my cards to my chest and understand how to deal with things. And that, to me, I feel is me being authentic. I'm plus some days when it feels real, you're riding that wave and there's no effort or energy. And you just go, 2,000 words, and put that up, and it goes, or you record whatever, you get that guest response, and the work just flies through. Or I get invited to something, I go speak on a stage, and it goes incredibly well, and it just fills that bar right back up. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, the thing is though, that's what pops to mind, man, right? Because the fact that you've got that dynamic already in place. And the fact is, because what I'm hearing when you're describing that is you're already identifying the sensations present. And I think this is what's so important. That's what the whole point of me talking about the geometric fucking repetition of life, hacking into it through the use of a craft, identifying sensations which are present when you're in the process of stabilizing the skill set necessary for that craft. The emotional sensations is primary. And I think that's what's so important. This will be the last one anyway, man. That's what's so important about this, is just the fact that it's like, it just feels like the beginning's just arriving, and it makes it perfect. At the very beginning, you're talking about how the fact that you feel like you're in this position of like overwhelmment towards the difficulty, and are we ever going to get past this fucking narrative of bullshit towards cannabis and all these different things? And that's like the rebirth element, and that's what it is. Because to be in a position of fear is what then makes the response, and then it fast forwards to then the development of something that in response to that element, and then you're moving it forward. So, I mean, essentially, we're just pretty much coming to the end here, man. This coming year, what's your thoughts? So what's your hopes for the coming year, for like not the cannabis movement itself, because it seems to be that's not really out of kind of like, I don't know. It feels like the people that are responsible for the direction are already aware. We're just kind of documenting what's fucking happening. But
we need them to disembark and get off the waters for us to be able to map what's left of the oceans, I think, with that one.
Yeah. So I mean, what's you thinking for, like, what would be your optimum? Let's say that, right? Because we're in June, middle of the year, so you've got 6 months. The 31st of December arrives, and you're looking back on this year. You know, you're looking back on it, and it's like, right, what would be your optimum? 31st of December, you're looking back. If you could do anything, and like you've got a situation where somebody's got a wee magic lamp, and then you can get anything in place, what would it be?
Figure out the approach that I want to take with the podcast in terms of getting it up to sort of that next level. In terms of do I sort of cut content time, market it. You know, I needed a new intro, I think, because I just took the old one off. I think the ideal would be the talks that I've got sort of planned and have already been booked for this year go well and are heard by, if nobody else, some of the policymakers, and that at least some of the conversations are happening, regardless of whether I participate within them. So yeah, the ideal would be to spend this year, as I think I already have started to do, which is taking the accelerator off on some areas to reassess what energy I want to channel into different things. So it's going to be taking the summer to kind of reassess what it is that I want and what it is that I feel I'm capable of doing and should be doing. And so yeah, by December, same as I am, hopefully same as every year, preparing for the next year for the kind of burst of energy sorry, that I get every spring, you know, as you move towards the equinox and you just feel it getting lighter and brighter in that energy and that vibe. It's, yeah, I want to be in a position where it's not about monetizing my work, but I feel it's about getting onto that next plateau of feeling that it's reaching people, getting the feedback that what I'm doing is worthwhile, because to me, I know it is. And this part of me is going like, wait, what does it say? A good artist is never appreciated in their lifetime. And it's kind of frustrating, because it's like, I don't mind that in some ways, but others, it's like some days it's like, just a little bit, can I have just a little bit of that future acknowledgement and just feast upon that, recharge myself and move forward? Because this is a small room, and like some days it feels it's smaller than a prison cell, and I'm choosing to sit in here on what could be some of the otherwise, I guess, best days of my life. Not that they're not, but it's, yeah, the ideal would be to find some certainty and surety in what it is that I'm doing to re-energize onto that next level, because I'm getting to that next level anyway. I'm crawling up that hill and I'm gonna get my fingertips on that ledge and pull myself up eventually. But it'd be nice if someone would give me a hand up by just, yeah, in the same way you have in this conversation, you know, sort of big me up, and it does, it makes me feel better about the whole collection of my work, and yeah, reassured in what I'm doing in the direction that I'm taking. So I do
Thing
greatly
is, though,
appreciate
you're very welcome, man. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just it's credit where credit is due, really. Because essentially, when you're not like I'm looking at your podcast from the outside, so you don't
that.
see your thing. You don't see you're too close to it. We all are,
Yeah,
so you don't see
yeah.
the thing, right? So for the outside looking in, when you, and obviously I've got a reference for other individuals who have done extraordinary things over the course of 10 or 15, 20 years. So there's references of that through people like just guys coming to the mind, obviously Conor McGregor in the UFC, but there's numerous other individuals, like scientists have done it, where it's like their work hasn't been noticed, and then 15 years later, there they are, authors, when they put, like that guy Robert Greene, he was 35 when he produced his very first work that got bought. Like he was 35 and he'd spent, and what he's got this famous thing when he talks about he went through 50 jobs before he was 35. And well, that's one of the things I can relate to, man, because fucking hell, I went through about 8 or 9 this last year. But it's like, but again, that's a side point. That's a consequence of this, man. Fucking hell, that's just this is pulling me there, you know. So, but that's all I'm saying is for the outside looking in, that's like these individuals who have went from being unknown whilst engaged in their craft, and then 10, 15 years later are known as a consequence of it, and they're making waves. That's for the outside looking in, that's what yours is. That's what, like, looking down, and that's what you've got to understand, because I'm aware of the internal sensations and that internal narrative which squashes it sometimes more than others. There's an internal narrative which is like, nah, you're just a guy that's for this town. Nah, you're just a wee local dude. Or you've not really gone in it. You're being one of these guys that, all that bullshit. It's fucking lying to you. It's lying to you because it's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you in the house. Because what is the basis of engaging in something meaningful? It's walking into the unknown. That's what all these fucking these metaphors of fighting the dragon that holds your fucking gold, for a Joseph Campbell quote, or in the same sense of, let's go all the way back to even Plato. Plato's fucking allegory of the cave, in a very real sense, is talking about the fact that stick with what you know, because when you're given the enlightenment of what the world is, people will probably try and fucking harm you. You know, you'll so just, and so that takes us all the way back to the insecurity that tells us, nah, we shouldn't write that book because who's going to fucking read it? Do you know the amount of people when I've been talking to them? Now that's another thing, because it's very obviously you are one of these people that reads. If you're somebody that reads, you're also an author. Like, you know the structures of books, you know what to expect. You're somebody that's read more than fucking a handful of books. You know what I mean? Because the reason I'm saying this is that I was speaking to a guy and he's got loads of potential, man. He's relatively local. He's an older guy, but it makes nothing. It just means that he's got more experience to put into his book. And the exact thing he said to me when I was, and the reason I'm even saying this, and the reason I was saying this to him, was because we'd spent half an hour with this relatively poetic fucking dialogue about the Middle East and relative religious text and concept to it, but culture. And he was very fluent and had a lot to offer. A very rich conversation. And I'd said that to him, I was like, bro, you need to fucking document this. You need to get this in a book. And I've heard this with 3 different people when it came to that, when they went, I'm not fucking going to write a book. Nobody's going to read that. Like, nobody's going to read that. Like, and that's the thing, right? I was like, no. It's not about somebody reading it or not reading it. It's about giving the opportunity for people to access something they wouldn't already know. I was like, what you've got, your biology, your biology, your social circumstance, and your ability, they form a triad of uniqueness that's only available to you. And so the thing you're going to channel down can only be produced because you've put it here. You know what I mean? And that's what's really, there's an urgency behind finding out who you are as a person, and just absolutely getting rid of the wee voice that's like, nah, you're just mundane. Nah, there's loads of people that's had these thoughts, but they've never made it. The chances are the chances. It's like, fuck the chances, man. It's a squasher of dreams. It's a squasher of ambition. And that's the main thing to remember, is from the outside looking in, you're in a position that loads of people would be like, fuck it. You maybe 3 years ago would be asking for the position you're in now. You know what I mean? It's like loads of people will be looking onto you going, man, I wish I had a podcast. I wish I did this. The amount of people that I see with like super duper small YouTube channels, like 2 or 3 subscribers, but the content they're putting in is like passion. They're like fucking hell, top quality passion. And they would just dream of being essentially in positions that you're in. And I think this is the whole point. It's just that we are all here to produce something really super duper unique. And for a long time, man, like I said, I've been fucking watching your shit and all that kind of stuff. And from the outside looking in, I see what's going on because we're in a similar position. A huge amount of potential that's just been slowed down slightly as a consequence of an internal narrative that we all hold. And that's what's going on, man. If you understand that what you've got to offer, the medical episodes in alignment with the fucking 7,000, 15,000 at times, man, that's insane. That's incomprehensible amount of words, man. What the fuck? Like that is, you've got a book like in the fucking shelves, man. That's what's going on. And that's all I thought. It's like the 31st of December, you arrive, you got a fucking, the very first book under your arm, those half a dozen talks, you've managed to actually promote and market your book in the last 2 or 3 of those talks by fucking October, November time. You know what I mean? And that's where, so people are aware of it, maybe even getting it into a point where there's a couple of chapters free, or like they get marketed through like Weed World, that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Or even do it in the sense of you don't even need to fucking sell the book. You could if you like, but you could even put it into a free format where people can access it readily. And then now you have a book that over the course of 2, 3, 5, 10 years, you're now doing regular updates, and this is your fucking thing. You know what I mean? There's an unbelievable list of potential that you have available to you, man. And this is what's so exciting about this, is that, you know, the closer you get, the more you hear this heartbeat of nature, this fucking it's very difficult, if I'm being honest. Like, I do believe in God, and I don't believe in a fucking male or any of this kind of shit. To think that's so rudimentary. But I believe that the more and more you engage towards your craft, the more you hear what God is saying. And it doesn't have, it's not in the form of words, it's in the form of actions that you should embrace. Cut off there, but just, that's all I mean, is just that it's really quite a fascinating thing when you get really, really close to the pulse of creativity. You see it as indistinguishable from the same energy that allows trees to form entire forests. And I think that's the thing that separates fucking humanity from the rest of what nature has produced. And it's completely within the context of nature to do this. It's like a Bible. It's like that's all it is. It's the same creative spirit. And some people are further along the path than others. Some people know they're on that path. Some people consciously open the door to it, and some people find themselves on it. And I don't know which one you come across, but you're certainly along like those three, but you're definitely along the path way further than you know. And the stuff that you have available to you, man, is extraordinary. And that's, let's say, writing a book, you like what you have available, like what you said you'd hope for by December, quite honestly, you could probably double that, man. Like what you have available to you, like your ability to articulate yourself, your writing capacity, your ability to produce podcasts, you know, you're able to produce way more than you think. And that's the reason I'm saying it completely unbiased. There is no benefit to myself, quite honestly, man. In the context of this, you're the opposition. Let's be honest. That's what this is. That's what it'd be, man. But I don't see it that way. It's like we're all in the same team, trying to engage in the same fucking creative capacity, and that's all I mean. What you have available to you, man, it's like 10 years time. There is going to be barely a handful of fucking people that have done podcasts or other form of YouTube or entertainment elements that have only lasted that length to 10, 15. There's always new ones, but there's only a handful of people that are around now that will still be there in 10 years, and they'll be the fucking people that will be getting leaned on by the new ones. And you're one of those guys. And that's why I just find it, let's say, man, up your game, because you're fucking, the amount of shit you've got available to you by the end of December is insane. And you could easily have a fucking book that's now update 1, update 2, edition 3, 4, 5. You could easily have that by December. Easily, man. The amount you're writing already, fucking hell, it's already there. You don't need to write anything more. You just go for what you've already written. Have it fucking proofread 2 or 3 times. All the main people, and I'm meaning main academic people that are familiar with it, you have them probably on WhatsApp. You better fucking send it over to them, man. Get them to proofread it and all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So this is a real thing that you should just definitely. I'm extremely excited to see what the end of December brings for all of us. And this is let's say, man, the path's just beginning, but definitely you should have more belief in what you've got to offer, lad. I'm telling you.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
And let's say we'll leave it there then. This has been a fucking pleasure, Simpa, as always. I'll have it uploaded in the next couple of days, and peace, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. I'd like to get you back on my podcast as well pretty soon. So always good to reciprocate.
Dynamite. Well, thing is, by then I'll be able to talk about the movie. I'm absolutely bursting to talk about it, but
we'll chat when you're ready. We'll get in the hot seat, and yeah, look forward to it, man. Really look forward to it, and it's been a pleasure as always. I enjoy our conversations, and you give me a lot to think about. I appreciate it as always.
Thanks to Simpa for giving me his time, and thanks to you for sticking around until the end of the video. I sincerely hope you enjoy the content. I'll see you next time.